Hello everyone, welcome to What If Quirkless Deku Awaken Lifeforce Stealing Quirk Part 1. Before we start, please go support Silverlion 12k for writing that awesome fanfic. Izuku Midoriya, who got the short end of the stick in life, has had enough. It wasn't bad enough that he was in an abusive relationship with Camine Utsushimi. Things got worse the day he met his idol. That was when he had enough. Chapter 1. No. I don't think you can be a hero without a quirk. All Might's words echoed in Izuku's head as he walked away from him. Having a goal is good, just make sure it's achievable. The door to the roof he was on slammed shut with Izuku looking at the sky. I guess it really is hopeless. Izuku was broken. His heart and mind crushed in the time of 24 hours. Why did it have to be this way? Flashback to the evening prior. Izuku laid on his bed tired from a hard day of work. It wasn't uncommon for some people his age to have a part-time job or to do odd jobs for a little spending money. But Izuku was one that did both. He did this for his girlfriend who he had been with for 2 long years. He met her when they were younger but never thought she saw anything in him. When they were in middle school together. He asked her if they could date. She agreed and Izuku felt like the happiest man in the world. Unfortunately, this didn't last long. He quickly realized she wasn't that caring for him and regularly asked him for money or used him as a whipping boy when she needed one. He wasn't foreign to being mocked and teased, but she went out of her way to make it known Izuku wasn't worth much in the eyes of the populace. If the fact this happened to him wasn't bad enough, the concept she nearly forced him to pick up part-time jobs and do several odd jobs on the side for money that she spent was. Izuku was nothing but a human slave, but he didn't know what else to do. Izuku looked over to see his phone vibrate to see who it was. When he saw the contact, it was his girlfriend Camine Utsushimi. A video. Izuku pressed play on the video sent to him and saw a side he wished he could unsee immediately. Oh yeah. Right there harder he witnessed his girlfriend bent over naked having sex with another man. Izuku stared silently as tears welled up in his eyes. You have no idea how I missed this after going to Shinketsu. This comment made it worse for Izuku. It was bad enough his girlfriend cheated on him, but now he realizes this wasn't even the first time. Buck, when the hell are you gonna stop dating that shitty Deku? Izuku's eyes widened as an all too familiar voice rang in his head. Relax Bakugo, Midoriya can't measure up to you. Besides, I want him to fail UA's entrance exams before breaking up with him. I want to see him cry as I show him what we do when we get the chance to. Izuku couldn't speak, but watched the video as his best friend childhood bully defiled the sanctity of an already unstable relationship in a single video. Buck, that felt good. So why did you want to tape this? Bakugo asked as Camine went to her phone. I want to show the little Quirkless why I'm out of his league. She tilted the phone to show the remnants of hers and Bakugo's actions to Izuku, who couldn't watch anymore. He shut his phone off and stared blankly at his ceiling. He didn't scream, he didn't shout, all he did was just lay there and cry. He couldn't do anything but this as he just witnessed one of the only things that could hurt him more than the words people say to him or the beatings Bakugo or Camine could give him. It's easy to say, Izuku didn't sleep at all, afraid the image will pop into his sleep and make him lose his mind. Back to present. Izuku walked over to the ledge of the roof and looked down. If you want a quirk so bad, take a swan dive off a roof and wish for a better one in the next life. Bakugo's statement crept into Izuku's head to force him to smile. All I need to do is jump, then the pain I have will stop. Izuku moved his feet across the safety bar and looked below to see the alley beneath. I just want this pain to end. Heck, why did I have to be born in a world that just wants to bring me down? I hate it. I just want to be free of this pain. Izuku took one last look at his life up to now to find only one person that may care if he died. Mom. I'm sorry, but I can't keep on living in this world as I am. Izuku moved his right foot off the ledge to pivot himself downward. He felt the air hit him in the face with the feeling of being free sinking in with him. Thud. Izuku felt unbearable pain and heard the sound of 2 girls screaming as he hit the solid concrete below him. I can't even die right. Why can't I get a break in this world? Izuku cried as he slipped out of consciousness. Some time had passed since Izuku took the big plunge from the building where he stood. His whole body was in pain. He could feel every bit of it. Although he was unconscious, he could hear every little thing around him as the sounds of large double doors slammed, people frantically running around shouting hook him up to an IV drip. Soon all that was replaced with gasping as if someone discovered something appalling, then it all concluded with weeping and the steady sounds of beeping. Izuku then slowly began to open his eyes as the blinding fluorescent lights from the hospital room blinded him as he turned his head to the left where he saw the night sky outside his window. He then heard the sliding door to his room open as he turned his head. It was none other than his mother. She shouted for a doctor to come in, then the head doctor had rushed inside to see if the boy was awake. The doctor began to check Izuku's vitals after finishing up. Do you know how stupid you are for jumping off that building? You're lucky two girls were passing by and saw your body and immediately called for help. Izuku looked down ashamed. He couldn't look the doctor or his mother straight in the eye. When you got here you had multiple broken bones, your legs, arms, ribs, back were fractured and heavily damaged. Izuku kept looking down. It wasn't until his mother Inko had grabbed his face to forcibly get his attention. Izuku, sweetie, please talk to me. When I got a call that you were in the hospital I thought I lost you. Please tell me what's wrong, it's breaking my heart. Inko said as tears were flooding from her eyes. It just made it harder for Izuku to even make eye contact with her. I'm sorry mom, it's just things got tougher and I thought you would have been happier without me holding your happiness back. I'm a quirkless nobody, I'm worthless to the society. It was at this moment that Inko did something she swore she would never do, so she slapped Izuku. You're all I have left, Izuku. If you died, I don't know what I would have done. The doctor interrupted the mother-son duo. Actually, when you came in we looked at your file and we decided to scan your body again to reveal a quirk had manifested. Both Inko and Izuku had shocked faces after they heard the doctor state that a quirk manifested. How is that possible, doctor? Well, Mrs. Midoriya, we still have little info on how quirks really work, but this quirk is nothing like we've seen. If I had to categorize it from D to A, this quirk is definitely double S rank. Chapter 2. Izuku was in awe at what the doctor said. What do you mean by double S rank? Also, just how different is it than what the normal is for you? Come to think of it, if what happened to me was real, then how am I still alive and functioning after hearing what I broke? I should feel more pain also. Is this part of my quirk? Izuku kept muttering until the doctor stopped him to explain. Let me put it in ways you can understand. The doctor put pictures of bones on a board to show Izuku. One side had several shattered bones, the other had bones that were perfectly fine. These are X-rays of your bones before and after you were pulled into the hospital. To be honest, you should be dead. However, the one on the left is after a little stunt you made with your quirk. What happened was you took something out of the bed and floor that was touching you and repaired yourself. We've come to the conclusion that your quirk works by absorbing life energy from things, since the touched objects turn to dust after. Once you were free of harm, your body also naturally put the energy back into whatever you were touching to place you on a rigid bed. We're not full on details yet, but we assume it's a very powerful quirk that can alter the natural order of the world. Izuku looked at his hands to take note of what the doctor said. How does it work? That's another thing we do not know. From what we gather, your body subconsciously did this. We checked blood samples to see that it works by just simple contact, and that is all. But we'll leave discovering how it works for later. Right now, you have 3 other visitors outside. Izuku was confused as not 1, but 3 more people came to visit him. The door opened to show a girl with long blue hair, a girl with short brown hair and a permanent blush, and a woman with blonde hair that was more commonly known as the draconic hero Ryukyu. The 2 girls came up and looked at Izuku with great fear for him. Are you okay? Izuku didn't know how to respond to this, as 2 girls came rushing to make sure he was alright. We saw you fall and freaked when you fell on the ground. The brown-haired girl started crying with the blue-haired one going pale. Why did you want to jump? There's always a better way. The blue-haired one was saying in a near panic mode as she was on the verge of tears as well. Alright, you two. Ryukyu stepped in to calm the 2 girls. I think we should discuss this a little calmer after some introduction. My name is the dragon hero, Ryukyu. The blue-haired girl is Najire Hado, a UA student that is interning with me. Well, the brown-haired is her friend Ichako Uraraka. Both girls greeted Izuku with him going next for introductions. My name is Izuku Midoriya. My mother is over there. Inko smiled at the 3 as Ryukyu spoke up. Would you care to tell me what made you decide to jump off a building? I may understand that life is hard sometimes, but I'd rather avoid you attempting suicide again if I can stop you. Izuku glanced at his mother before speaking. Mom, can you let me talk to them alone please? Inko wanted to know what made the little boy she raised decide to do such a thing, but understood that this wasn't the time or the place for this. She respected Izuku's decision and left. When she was gone, Izuku looked at his hands before speaking. To start off with, I didn't know I had a quirk until the doctor told me a minute ago. Until now, I've been quirkless and bullied for it. This hurt hearing for the 3 as someone was willing to do something so mean to another person. Things got worse the night before I jumped when my girlfriend sent me a video of her sleeping with a person that made it a personal goal to bully me. That's horrible. Ichako shouted this with Izuku laughing. She's not that bad. If you obey what she says, she doesn't get mad at you. Izuku states this with ignorance as Ryukyu notices what's happening. The day after, I met All Might, who I idolized for years, and asked him if someone without a quirk can be a hero. He said no and told me to give up on it. I felt so distraught at that moment with the one guy I mentioned before, words echoing in my head. Najire was scared, but asked. What were they? If I want a quirk so bad, take a swan dive off a roof and pray for one in my next life. Izuku was laughing at his own stupidity as Ryukyu became enraged at this. I'm sorry Midoriya. You did not deserve any of what was said to you. She was holding her tongue the best she could with her mind going a mile a minute. He tells people that anyone can be a hero, and he tells someone who needs the pep the most the reality of what he believes. You do not understand how much pain you induced on someone who needed you to say yes All Might. So you decided to jump. Ochako was scared to say the last part, but did with Izuku nodding. It hurt to live in this world, so I thought I could jump off, and it would be a quick and painless death. Guess I was wrong. Ryukyu couldn't hear any more of this and left to the halls knowing as a society they failed this boy. While she left, both Midoriya and Ochako began hearing about Izuku's relationship. They learned that the woman that was named Camine treated him like a piece of dirt and verbally abused him whenever they would meet up. Some abuse would go to physical as she would step on him or tie him up in a closet for a day or two whenever he was with her for over a day. She even bled him of every penny he would have from doing part-time and odd jobs to have her take everything and use it on herself. Midoriya and Ochako could not believe anyone could do such a thing and felt horrible that Izuku went through this type of relationship for 2 years. The two girls felt that Izuku had a slight case of Stockholm Syndrome after hearing him say that she wasn't that bad if you obeyed. The two girls who haven't been in relationships but knew this was an unhealthy relationship. After coming to the realization of this, they both said their goodbyes. Please don't do anything reckless, we'll come back to see you, okay? Izuku was surprised that the two were going to see him again, but he nodded since he didn't want to get his hopes up. Now that the two were outside, Ochako looked at Midoriya as they simultaneously said, I want to help him. That was when they heard another voice, will you? The two turned around to see Izuku Midoriya. She had looked at the girls hoping they could help him. He is my everything and the only family I have left in this world. I don't know what I'd do if he died. She was on the verge pleading and begging them, with both full-heartedly agreeing to it. They saw how horrible actions of others drove him to this and knew that helping him is the only way to keep this from happening again. If he did do this again and they could have done something, they'd feel as if they were partly responsible. I'll also be assisting Mrs. Midoriya. Everyone looked over to see Ryukyu walk to them. Your son did nothing wrong, but we chose to insult, punish, and ridicule him as a society. Just because he has a quirk now does not mean those things will not affect him. Now that I know of his past and a little more about his quirk, I'd wish to teach him and have him attend UA if possible. Inko was overjoyed to say the least. Not only were two people willing to help change her son's demeanor and put him back to the fun-loving boy he was, but also a top-tier pro hero is willing to help him become stronger and attend his dream school. When you were looking for information about Izuku's quirk, what did you find? Ryukyu pulled out a few papers and began explaining. Meanwhile with Bakugo. I deem you worthy of inheriting my quirk. A skinny man that few knew as All Might pointed at Bakugo, with him holding a now more inflated ego than he already had. Earlier in the day, Bakugo was attacked by a sludge villain and almost died. If he had not found a way out himself, things may have gone south for him immediately. Even All Might sees I'm the best, this is too perfect. Training begins tomorrow at the Gaba Municipal Beach at 5 in the morning. Don't be late. All Might leaves with Bakugo getting a text from his mother. She stated to him that Izuku was in the hospital and that she was going to try and visit him. This made Bakugo smile even more, knowing the Quirkless Deku, as he called him, was now out of his life for some time. He went down his ID list until reaching a name illusion hitch to call. When someone answered, he said what he knew. Deku's in the hospital. We're bucking tonight. The girl agreed and they hung up. Chapter 3. Izuku laid in the hospital bed as his mother went home due to visiting hours ending. Mitsuki didn't make it in time to see Izuku. He didn't know if his life was about to change for the better. Although he kind of expected Camine to at least show up and visit, though after remembering that video she sent him as tears slowly fell from his face, knowing that the relationship was non-existent from the beginning. I wish this didn't happen. Izuku's mind went to Midoriya and Ochako, who showed him the most kindness he's had from people that weren't his mother in a long time. A smile crept on his face before he corrected himself. They're just nice people. They did what they did because it was the right thing to do. He sighed as he remembered something undesirable. You're still dating Camine, right? He didn't know what to think before falling asleep. 1 week later. After being released, Izuku was greeted by his mother, Ochako, and Midoriya, who helped him home. During his stay, his mother along with one or both of the girls visited him almost daily. He was happy that they did this. However, he did not get one visit or even a contact from Camine, who didn't even contact him during the time in the hospital. Izuku played it as she was busy or something and tried to find a good reason. But now that he's out, Izuku dreaded the conversation that he was going to have with her and wished it wasn't going to happen. So Midoriya, what are your plans for getting ready for UA? Midoriya asked with her curiosity sprouting out. Well, Ms. Ryukyu told me to meet her tomorrow in the forest in the morning, saying that she'll help me train. I'm not sure what I'm going to do though. Izuku started to remember a conversation he had with Ryukyu a few days before he left the hospital. Few days prior. I'd like to train you, if that's alright with you. Ryukyu asked as Izuku was a little taken back by this. Why help me? Ryukyu looked at Izuku as he was curious as to why. I appreciate it, but why would the 9th strongest pro hero want to train a useless person like me? I knew someone who was quirkless when I was in middle school. She was bullied and I did nothing. She was harassed and I did nothing. One day, someone took it too far and told her to go die. I heard this and did nothing like everyone else. Walking home that day, I saw her commit suicide the same way you did. Unfortunately, she didn't survive like you and spent the last few minutes of her life crying and saying that she was sorry for her parents. It wasn't just me, but I should have done something back then. Now I have a chance to help fix someone who was in the same hole she fell into in you. This should have never happened to either of you, but I think I can at least help you. Remembering the scene over 10 years ago for the dragon hero made her irritated with her own self and sickened by what she failed to do. She knew it wasn't just her fault, but that doesn't excuse the fact she should have said or done something. I'm sorry for that. It must have been hard to witness. Ryukyu patted Izuku's head and smiled. Don't be too broken down by it. We all have things we wish were different, but living in the past does nothing for any of us. Ryukyu passed Izuku a small set of papers before getting up. That is all the information I was able to find on your quirk. Look it over when you have the chance and meet me in Mistafir's forest the day after you're out of the hospital at the crack of dawn. We'll begin your training there. As she left, Izuku looked over the info on his quirk that Ryukyu gave him. Siphon. Can drain life energy out of animate or inanimate objects to have the user increase strength, speed, and healing properties. Can also be transferred to someone else to give similar abilities. Drawback is if too much is drained or absorbed and/or held for too long, the body will be unable to function correctly with the abnormal fluctuation of life energy. In addition, this quirk must have the user be in a near-death experience for it to manifest. So I literally got this from doing what Kachin said, weird. Izuku thought of this as he glanced at a vase of dead flowers. I wonder how this works. Izuku thought of draining the energy in the papers he had for them to start crumbling to nothing. Wow, feels like I had 2 cups of coffee in a single moment. Izuku touched the flowers thinking the same way, but with giving energy for them to revitalize into what they once were. This is going to be difficult until I get used to it. Back to present. As Izuku and company got to the Midoriya residence, they heard a voice come from behind them that was all too familiar to Izuku. Hey Izuku, what's up? They looked back to see a girl with fawn-colored hair smiling at him. I've been trying to reach you, but your phone went right to voicemail. Izuku knew this was a lie. He had his phone on the entire time he was in the hospital and not once did her contact info come up. I've been in the hospital, sorry. Amy went over to wrap her arm around Izuku and pull him out of the group. So do I have to worry about you cheating on me with these girls? Kami smiled with it emitting a death aura as if she was ready to kill him any second. And no. They're just friends. Izuku held his head down as Najira and Ichako began to get angry at Kami. Friends huh? Do they know you're quirkless? Not like it matters, nobody would want to be with you after they find that out. Kami laughed as Izuku silently nodded. Ichako couldn't hear any more of this. She doesn't know much about relationships, but she knew bullying when she saw it. Yes we do. In fact, we got to know Izuku very well while in the hospital. Ichako pulled Izuku out of Kami's hold which angered her. As a matter of fact, he also told us about you Miss Utsushimi. She smiled as this was said. So you know that Izuku's my bae then. So how about you let me and him catch up? It's not right to have people interfere in a couple's time together. Kami pulled Izuku back to her and walked away with him. As they left, Kami glared at Izuku in anger. You're going to get punished now. Izuku flinched at this knowing what was going to happen. As this was said, memories of him being tortured, beaten, and failed to be branded flooded his head as he was about to have a nervous breakdown. Not again I'll be good, just not that please. Izuku was panting in fear until a voice shot out. Sorry to disappoint you, but Izuku promised to stay at home today. Najira pulled him away from Kami staring her down in anger. The doctor told him to avoid going out in public directly after what happened and to have him slowly get back into society. So that time you want with him will have to wait. Amy looked back with an angry tick on her head with Ichako coming to stand beside Izuku. Let's go Izuku. Maybe a nice quiet stay home will help you. As they walked away, Kami accepted this and left as well. Fine. Maybe I can talk to our friend Bakugo if he wants to hang out since I'm in the area. Saying this made Izuku's heart sink with the video replaying in his mind. I'll talk to you later Izuku. Kami walked away with Izuku on the verge of tears. You don't need someone like that in your life. Izuku turned to Ochako. What do you mean? She's been playing you all along, that's no relationship, that's abuse. What made you fall for someone like that in the first place? I guess I was desperate to be loved and accepted by someone other than my mother. Ijiro began to hug Izuku hearing this. You don't need someone like that, you're better than her. We can tell from what we've learned from you. Izuku felt happy to hear these words as they all went inside to enjoy the day being home. Quirk. Quirk. Siphon. This quirk allows the user to drain the life force of anything living and non-living. By draining life force, it allows the quirk wielder to use it as energy to boost strength, speed, stamina and recovery. This can also be passed to others. Drawback. If the user exceeds limitations, they will black out. It may cause them to go into a coma-like state. This quirk can only manifest if the person is in a life or death situation, which may also cause misdiagnosis, resulting in quirkless status. Chapter 4. Roughly 5 months had gone by since Izuku returned home. In that time, Izuku had been training diligently with Ryukyu in the woods. Her training consisted of stamina and some strength training. Since Izuku was one that did not work out, this was very taxing on Izuku. This, however, was not the major part of his training. What he had to do for training his quirk was the most painful for him. Every day, Ryukyu would have him drain as much energy he can out of a tree and place it into a seed. The purpose was to fully drain out a full-grown tree's life essence and transfer it into a seed to grow an adult tree of equal size. The first 2 months, Izuku was barely able to make a sapling sprout. Once he was used to the training, however, he began to sprout a tree big enough to buy at local greeneries. Doing this, however, wore him out with the training still to look at. As this went on, Nejire and Ochako spent more time together and trained for the entrance exams as well. Hers mainly consisted of controlling how long she can hold things in the air before needing to put them down, along with some stamina training of her own. After training, the 3 teenagers would get together and spend time as a group. This worked as both decompressing for them after a hard workout and mental therapy for Izuku, since he was still struggling with life a bit. Now, instead of the people that bullied him going after him, they tend to stay away out of fear of what happened and what he can do now. Bakugo, however, did not let up and kept belittling Izuku, with it now becoming numb to the green-haired boy. Speaking of Bakugo, he had begun his training with All Might the day after Izuku was admitted to the hospital and was told to clean up an illegal dumping site that was once Tagaba Municipal Beach. The first 2 weeks in Bakugo remained silent, but he began getting more mouthy after the half-month of doing this mark. By the 2nd to 3rd month, he began getting very agitated before the 4th month, telling All Might that this is insulting to him. The scrawny pro told him that these were essential parts of becoming a hero and that he should have patience. By the 5th month, however, Bakugo made the bare minimum of clearing the coastline, with All Might passing off it to him. Nicely done, young Bakugo. Not only did you achieve the requirements I told you, but you did it in half the time I gave you. All Might spoke to him with some admiration for what he did. Of course I did, only a loser wouldn't be able to do something so simple as this in 5 months. Bakugo stated this with a rather cocky tone, as All Might turned into his muscle form and plucked a hair out of his head. Now, eat this. All Might held a piece of his hair out with Bakugo, looking like All Might was an idiot to achieve the quirk. You must ingest some of my DNA. Now, eat. Bakugo ate the hair and nearly threw up after. What the buck, I just ate your hair and I don't feel different. It will take a few hours before it makes its way into your system. We will still train here, so please keep coming here at the same time. Our new goal is to get you ready with it and manage the quirk in your own way. Bakugo listened and left thinking this was bullshit of an answer, with All Might being oblivious to this. That evening, Izuku was heading home with Nejire and Ochako, who told him to join them at the movies. They had watched a comedy that Ochako personally wanted to see for a while, but wanted to wait for Nejire to see it. They had a blast together, with each of them laughing and enjoying the other's company. As they walked home, they were met with an undesirable face yet again, who wanted to ruin their good spirit. So you think you're too good for me and stopped answering my calls? Hakemi went up and began shouting at Izuku, with Nejire and Ochako standing in between. All big and bad now that you have skanks to protect you, let's face it, you're nothing but a loser. Izuku stood there and looked Kami in the eyes. It's over. Everyone was silent as Izuku rephrased what he said. I'm breaking up with you. Whether what we had really was a relationship or not, it just isn't healthy. Nejire and Ochako pulled back as Kami walked up to Izuku. As she was in front of him, she punched him hard in the eye with him standing there. You're not the one that breaks up with me, I break up with you. She went for another before getting grabbed by Nejire and getting a punch to the face by Ochako. If I had respect for you, it's gone now. Ochako says this while shaking her hand, not being used to punching someone. They walked away with Kami shouting things she did to Izuku as a way to get the last laugh. Both girls wrapped their arms around Izuku and walked away. Once they got to Ochako's house, her and Nejire said their goodbyes to Izuku. Are you sure that eye of yours is gonna be alright? Najira asks as she looks at a swollen black and blue eye on Izuku. I've had worse. Don't worry yourself about it. Thanks for inviting me though, I had fun for the most part. Both girls smiled before opening the door to head inside. But before they did, they turned around and kissed one of Izuku's cheeks before running inside. Izuku walked home happy as anything with his mother noticing the black eye. She was going to question him, but chose not to after seeing her son happier than he's been in a long time. With All Might. Why is it that young Bakugo fights me at everything I've been trying to do for him? Did I perhaps make a mistake on my successor? Nah, that can't be it, maybe it will take a bit longer for him to come around, All Might thought to himself as he took a stroll at night, hoping to clear his mind. He then arrived to Dagaba Beach and saw that the bare minimum of cleaning Bakugo had done was full of trash again. This brought disappointment to All Might since he thought those within the community would have at least kept it clean. On top of that, ever since the transfer of power went to Bakugo One for All had been acting up, All Might thought about visiting his master, might give him a clue why the power is acting up. It was then when he arrived at home and got ready for bed he was out like a light. Once it was fixed in his dream he saw the person who was like a mother to him. Nana, is that you? He asked in shock. Yes, it's me, you fool, now pay attention, the transfer of power is rejecting your so-called successor. Ashinori was surprised because his master had never spoken to him in such a way. Why is for rejecting young Bakugo? He's a perfect candidate. Nana could only show disappointment in her old student. I say you do some research on your successor because he's no hero material, but if you proceed this way, then you've made a mockery of all the ones who came before you. It was then Toshinori had woken up in a cold sweat, looked around and was in thought for a moment, only to shrug his shoulders and not take heed to the words of his master. Chapter 5. Several months have passed since Izuku broke up with Camine, with his life turning for the better. He started hanging out more with Najira and Ichako, to which they felt a little more special to him. His training also took a big turn upwards since he wasn't so caught up with worrying about meeting his ex again. Today was the final day of training with Izuku prepared for the first test given to him. Alright, let's see if you can manage what we've been working on. Ryukyu motioned Izuku to try and siphon the life energy out of a tree beside her, with Izuku ready to achieve his goal today. I'd like to see you succeed, but don't go over your limit and hurt yourself. Izuku placed his hand on the tree to siphon all the life energy out of it to rot the tree into nothing. How do you feel? NNNGH, like I'm about ready to burst at the seams if I'm not careful. Ryukyu tossed Izuku an acorn for him to start the next step. Izuku placed the small seed down before sending everything he just absorbed into it to watch it grow into an adult tree. When it was done, the small acorn looked exactly like the tree that had just rotted away, with Ryukyu smiling at Izuku. Nicely done. I didn't expect you to be able to do it perfectly, but you exceeded my expectations. Congratulations, Midoriya. Ryukyu smiled at Izuku while he started panting for air. It may be difficult now, but the more you can hold in a single moment will prolong the amount of time you can hold a smaller amount. It's not that easy of a trick to master, but you are excelling at using it faster than many. Though this does not mean you should shirk your training with this. You have gotten back up to speed with many who will in return try to surpass you. But you do deserve a pat on the back for coming as far as you have in the amount of time given. Izuku smiled while bowing at Ryukyu. Thank you, ma'am. I could only get this far with your proper guidance. I owe you so much. You don't owe me anything. You obtained this through your own hard work, so this is all because of what you put in. Now, take the rest of the day off and rest up for tomorrow. You and your Raka have your work cut out for you. Izuku nodded before running back to his house. As he left, Ryukyu looked at the trees Izuku had drained over the time he's been training to notice the first one done. The small sprout budding up reminded her of how Izuku's life had grown into a happy one. Good luck tomorrow, Midoriya, and your Raka, Najira, will be supporting you both along with myself. The next day. Izuku stood in front of UA's campus with a little bit of confidence of what he had achieved and that he's now able to possibly enter into his dream school. This is it, Izuku. 10 months of brutal training, years of trouble, and a failed death leading up to this point. Wait, why did I want to add the I almost died part? Izuku brushed this off before taking a step in. This, however, was met with him tripping and almost went flat on the concrete. When he stopped, however, he found himself floating. You okay, Izuku? He looked behind him to see Ichako, Najira, and Ryukyu smiling at him. Yeah, sorry if I caused you any problems. Izuku smiled at them while Ichako put him right side up again. Don't worry about it. Release. Ichako put Izuku's gravity back on with him standing up again. We should get going, don't want to be late for the exam. Izuku nodded with the two of them going inside. While they did, Najira and Ryukyu went to the monitor room to watch their performance. When they entered, they were greeted by the staff along with a skeleton-looking man who only the teachers knew was All Might. Beside him was an ash blonde teen Najira learned of by what Izuku said. Why hello Ryukyu and Miss Hato, it's nice to see you two again. A strange rodent-looking thing known as Nezu says this with a warm smile. Hello Nezu. I apologize for us coming in unannounced like this, but we just wish to see two people we trained perform today if that is possible. Nezu agreed with Ryukyu's demand with him asking who they were. When the dragon hero said Izuku's name, the ash blonde smirked at this. Don't expect much from that one, he's nothing but a quirkless loser. This comment made some of the teachers question why Ryukyu spent time training him, while others ignored it. When Nijire heard this comment, she walked over to Bakugo who smirked at her. He was about to say something, but obtained a very loud and hard slap across the face. You deserve more than this, but we both know this is the least you deserve. Nijire glared at Bakugo with cold dead eyes, as if she was ready to commit murder. She walked back to Ryukyu with nobody understanding what just happened. You're lucky Izuku doesn't want us to go any farther, or I'd put in a request to deny your recommendation and even your enrollment to any hero school. Bakugo. On the testing field. Izuku was pretty nervous, but he knew things changed when Ichako, Nijire and Ryukyu came into his life. He slowed his breathing, then saw grass around him. When he kneeled down to the grass he touched the earth and then absorbed the life energy of the ground. Hey Izuku, guess we're in the same testing site. Ichako came over to greet him with Izuku greeting her right back. So you ready? To be honest, I'm a little nervous. Izuku held the back of his head while saying this with Ichako giving him a reassuring smile. Don't worry, you'll do great. You worked hard and deserve to get in. Those words and that smile warmed Izuku's heart. He knew he had Ichako, Nijire, and Ryukyu on his side, but hearing one of them say he's definitely gonna do great reassured him. The doors opened during this with Present Mick shouting go for them to start. Izuku ran in as fast as he could with everyone behind him. He started absorbing energy from the concrete to gain some more energy to put more strength into his punches. A three-pointer came over to Izuku to try and hit him and only got a punch through its head to explode. That was cool. His moment of marvel at his acts were cut short when more robots came at him. Meanwhile in the monitor room. All the teachers had watched in fascination at the power and skill behind Izuku, with some making comments that he was a born natural. These comments however rubbed Bakugo the wrong way with Nijire holding a confident smirk knowing his reaction. The nerd should be bucking Quirkless. Everyone ignored him as Nezu began to press a large button to initiate the next phase of the exam. Back on the field. The ground began to shake with a giant mecha robot towering over the field. Izuku was ready to run before he heard a shout. Help! He looked over to see Ichako trapped under a set of debris that fell when the robot appeared. In an effort to save her, he ran as fast as he could to the robot and put his hands up above his head. Izuku, get out of here or you're gonna get squished with me. I'm not losing someone close to me over a stupid exam. When the mechanical monster reached them, Izuku's hands began quickly draining out all the energy with him below shaking. Hyperspeed siphon Izuku started to shake from the vast amount of energy being poured into him. The robot in question began to go from a fully functional mechanical beast to a pile of rusted away metal shavings in seconds. To let go of the power, Izuku slammed his hand to the ground to shout again. Max deplete all the excess energy he just obtained was dropped into the ground for grass, weeds, and flowers to grow around him and Ichako. When all was said and done, Izuku stood tall, knowing Ichako was safe and he was the one to do it. Izuku, thank you. He looked down to see a blushing Ichako who was smiling at him. Don't mention it. Izuku fell to the ground to make Ichako panic for him. During his situation of dropping all the excess energy inside him, his body kinda got a little messed up and was now a little out of it, similar to that of an adrenaline crash. He smiled though knowing he finally paid one of the three people who he owes a life debt to. Few hours later with Bakugo. Bakugo walked in silence as he returned to Mustafar. As he entered his house, he was met by Camine who was smiling ear to ear. So, how badly did Izuku fail? Bakugo gritted his teeth before answering. He passed. Camine asked him what he said again to which he shouted in anger. He passed. Not only that, but he's got the bucking best score out of everyone. This comment made Camine bite her nail in anger as the one thing she could have confidence knowing she'd have over Izuku was now gone. How? He's quirkless. That's what I'm trying to find out. He did have a quirk though I don't know how, but the nerd got one. Bakugo went to his room and began shouting with Camine letting herself out. Damn it Deku, how the buck did you do that? As he shouted this, Izuku, Ichako, Nijire and Ryukyu were having a celebratory snack at a mochi and tea shop in Mustafar, with the exams finally being over before leaving their separate ways for home. Chapter 6. It was the day he finally waited for. It was the first day of UA High. Many at Eldera Junior High couldn't believe that their very own Izuku Midoriya had gotten the top spot in the entrance exam. As he was dressed for his first day at UA, he packed his bag. Normally he would have packed an All Might action figure, but when All Might crushed his dreams, he took all of the merchandise he owned and sold it on eBay to some guy named Futuricite, who bought all his figures and paid a hefty sum of money due to all of them being mint condition. Before he walked out of the door, his mother had told him how proud she was of him. The second he stepped outside, he saw Nejire and Ichako waiting for him. "Ready to go?" Nejire asked, with Izuku nodding with a smile. They began walking to the station to catch the train and make it to UA. When they got inside, Nejire left to head to her class with Ichako and Izuku going to theirs. As they walked, Ichako and Izuku started talking. "So what do you think our classmates are going to be like?" Izuku thought about it before answering her. "So long as they're nice, it shouldn't be that much of an issue." They arrived at a giant door that had one on it, with Izuku beginning to open the door. As he did, the two overheard an argument someone inside was having. "Get your feet off that desk this instant. It is an insult to our upperclassmen and the pros that sat in it before, and the ones who made the desk." Izuku and Ichako opened the door to see a blue-haired guy fight with Bakugo. While arguing, he said his name was Tenya Iida, with Bakugo saying he'll beat him. This ended when Bakugo and Iida saw Izuku and Ichako at the door. "Hello, my name is Tenya Iida from Same." Iida ran over to the two, while karate chopping the air for some reason. "I must congratulate you on finding the secret grading system in the exam." Izuku didn't understand this, but nodded anyway. Izuku shivered at this while Bakugo walked up to him. "You better tell me how you bucking did that or you're dead." Bakugo started grabbing his uniform, with Ichako kicking Bakugo in the shin. "So you're the infamous Katsuki Bakugo? I'm going to enjoy watching Izuku mop the floor with you." Bakugo started making explosions in his hands and glared at Ichako. "You wanna go bucking round face? I'll bucking kill yo." He stopped though when it felt like all his energy was sucked out of him to make him fall to the floor. Behind Bakugo, Izuku was standing there looking at Bakugo like he was about to kill him. "Threaten Ichako again, I dare you." Everyone in the room felt the coldness from these words before Izuku put the energy he stole back into Bakugo. They all sat down, with a yellow caterpillar walking in. As it got to the podium, the caterpillar turned out to be a man that looked like a hobo. "Hello, my name is Shota Izawa. I'll be your homeroom teacher. Put these on and meet me outside." Izawa pulled out 20 uniforms, with everyone grabbing one. When the boys entered the changing room, some caught a glimpse of Izuku taking his shirt off to show immense amounts of scars on him. Many wanted to think Izuku was a dead man walking or something, with hardly any part of his torso without some kind of damage done. As everyone walked out on the field, Izawa explained that they're doing quirk apprehension tests. He threw Izuku a bowl with him, asking Izuku what his top score in middle school was. He stated it was 64 meters and was told to use his quirk this time. Izuku went over to the grass first, with everyone questioning before he placed his hand down and absorbed all the life in the area to make a circle of dead plants. He walked into the circle next and threw it as far as he could. His distance was just under a kilometer, with everyone amazed at this. "You all will be doing 8 tests today, with all of you using your quirks. Also, the last person in them will be expelled." Everyone thought this was unfair, with Izawa looking at Izuku. "Midoriya, do you think this is unfair?" Izuku thought before answering. "Is it bad if I say it kinda is but supported?" Izawa shakes his head no, with Izuku walking back over to Ichako. "After the tests. Alright, so saying how you did in all the tests is kinda pointless, since you all kinda already know how you did. So up above is your overall score." Izawa showed the tests, with Izuku placing second behind a girl named Yayoi Rozu and Bakugo placing fourth. The last place person was a guy named Mineta, who was on the verge of tears. Oh, and about the whole expulsion thing, that was a lie. Everyone freaked as Izawa said it was a logical ruse to get them all to work their hardest. Many really didn't enjoy the surprise, but they at least didn't fight it, knowing nobody was going to be expelled today. Izawa left, telling them to pick up a syllabus in the classroom, and that class was dismissed. As the students changed and began to leave, Izuku and Ichako met Nejire at the front, smiling. "So how was the first day?" Both smiled and said it was nice. "Izuku got second in a test to see how our quirks work today." "That's amazing." "It's not that special." They kept talking until Bakugo shouted at Izuku. They turned around to see Bakugo mad as anything. "You think you're so much better now that you have that shitty power? Well, I got news for you, you're still that shitty quirkless loser." Bakugo started to walk over with Nejire and Ichako, trying to stand in front of Izuku. He put his arms up, saying that he needs to handle this all on his own. "You know something, Kachin, this power I got from taking your advice to take a swan dive off the roof of a building. So if I had anything to say out of all the evil things you did to me, I'd thank you for telling me to jump. Doing that made me find people that really care for me that I owe them my life to." Izuku started to walk away, taking Ichako and Nejire's hands. "Oh, and by the way, I broke up with Camine." You can have her since it angered you so much in that video she sent me. Izuku felt a great weight lift off him saying what he did and smiled. So what do you two want to do for lunch? I know this great sandwich shop I go to nearby. The prices are also really good. Nijire mentioned this with everyone agreeing. Oh also, how are those debts you have Izuku? In his time dating Kami, she forced Izuku to take out loans and max cards on her. The amount the little green-haired boy had was so intense, he thought he'd be paying them back for the rest of his life. Paid the last one back last night. Finally free and can live for myself. When he sold all his memorabilia, Izuku was just short of paying all them back, so he kept his part-time for a short while until the debt was paid and was doing half the small side jobs he'd do as spending money to do with Nijire and Ichako. The trio paid evenly, so he would only have to worry about enough money for him. Then I say we celebrate. What kind of dessert does the place sell Nijire? Ichako shouted for joy as her friend was back on track with normal teenage life. They don't have any special dessert, but there is a cake shop. Let's go there and pick a nice cake out for you when we're done. Our treat. You two don't have to do that, I can just pay for the cake. We're paying for the cake. Both the girls argued as Izuku agreed only if he paid for their lunches. They didn't fight that, knowing how kind he is, and accepted this offer. The trio walked down the street to their destination with smiles all around. Chapter 7. The following day, after Izuku and the girls enjoyed a celebratory cake, the trio walked to school together. When they got into the hallway, Nijire would go to the third-year classroom and Izuku and Ichako headed towards 1A. They arrived on time and took their seats before the bell rang, so classes began like a normal high school with math, English, science, hero law and so on. After lunch, however, is where they officially start the hero training classes. I am coming through the door like a hero. All Might had come through the door in his Silver Age costume, with everyone being amazed they're being taught by the number one pro. Well, not everyone. Izuku had lost all respect for All Might after his conversation to the point of almost nothing but hate remaining, and Ichako wasn't that far behind him. She wasn't as big of a fan as Izuku, but she still respected what he did as a pro until hearing his hypocritical statement to Izuku. Now she couldn't care less about the pro. Heroics 101 is where you all shall learn the skills you need to become heroes. So for today's training, we shall do battle training. All Might held a large flash card up to show the words in bold before pressing a button. And what hero would be complete without costumes on K? 20 costumes came out from the walls with All Might telling them to change and meet them on ground beta. As they all began changing, a redeed known as Kirishima came up to Izuku to ask him a question. So Midoriya, what's up with all the scars and stuff? Izuku looked down at his torso and started to get pissed at the question, remembering what happened to him. Life isn't fair to everyone. Just leave it at that and move on. He shut his locker and walked out more angered than he should be. On ground BETA 23. Everyone came out with their costumes on and huddled around All Might. Wow Izuku, you look so cool in your costume. Ichako came up and complimented Izuku's hero costume with him kinda blushing a bit. Thanks, I had Ryukyu help me with the design a bit. Looks awesome though, I honestly should have been a bit more specific with mine though. She started blushing a bit while stating how she wasn't really a fan of the skin-tight bodysuit she had. It's a little too tight for my liking. Izuku saw this and started to get a nosebleed from seeing Ichako with little hell to the imagination. You okay Izuku? Why yeah, just a little too much to take in at once. He starts awkwardly laughing with All Might starting. He explained how this training will be a 2-on-2, with one side being the heroes and the others the villains. To win, a team would have to either touch the fake bomb hidden in the hero's case, let the time go out in the villain's case, or capture all of the other team. Teams will be drawn in lots, to which is also how they will determine who's the hero and who's the villain. As the lots were drawn, Izuku found himself paired with Ichako and facing Bakugo and Iida, who were the villains. They went inside with Izuku and Ichako preparing a strategy. This is gonna be rough on you, isn't it Izuku? Izuku started shaking with all his blood in his face draining out. He knew he may one day face Bakugo, but he wasn't ready to fight him on the second day. Izuku. Izuku felt a hand on his shoulder to see Ichako looking at him worried. If it's too much, I can handle Bakugo if we run into him. Izuku shook his head. I gotta do this. If I let my past haunt me, then I can't get over this hurdle. Also, I think I have a plan. Izuku explains it to Ichako with her agreeing. When 5 minutes passed, Izuku and Ichako went in on the bottom floor. They didn't bother checking the bottom two since they believed it would be on the higher levels of the 5-story building. As they rounded a corner though, they were met by an explosion to them with Izuku pulling Ichako and himself out of the way. About time I get to pound you into the dirt. Bakugo looked at them with the face of a madman as he started attacking them. Izuku was able to grab his arm to drain him of some vitality and throw him some distance. Ichako ran upstairs as Bakugo was getting up to go at her. Where do you think you're going? Bakugo came at Ichako trying to stop her with Izuku giving a solid punch to his face in mid-flight. Your fight is with Mikachin, don't get confused now. Bakugo came out of the rubble and began another assault on Izuku. He tried to dodge it, but Bakugo changed the course of his momentum with his quirk at the last moment to slam Izuku into a wall. What's the matter Deku, can't get me with that stupid quirk of yours. Bakugo slugged Izuku in the face to cause an explosion. Is that the best you can do? He sucker punched Izuku in the gut to cause another explosion. This time however, Izuku grabbed Bakugo's arm before it could leave to suck out a good heap of his energy. His face started to reshape and heal with it, making all Bakugo's damage next to nothing. Time to get serious. Izuku ran up to Bakugo with him trying to blast a little distance between them. Izuku moved too fast for this and kneed Bakugo in the stomach. Now for the punch to the face. Izuku slugged Bakugo in the face and broke his nose in the process. In a fit of anger, Bakugo stood up and saw his gauntlets glow. I'm all charged up now. He held his gauntlet to Izuku with a pin sticking out. Young Bakugo, if you do that, he could die. He'll live if he dodges. Bakugo pulled the pin and sent a giant explosion rocketing to Izuku. The blast blew away a chunk of the building with Izuku laying on the floor motionless. You see that shitty nerd, you're nothing compared to me. Bakugo started laughing with everyone in the monitor room scared of what happened. All of a sudden, the lights went out with only the audio remaining. What the? You think you've beaten me, Kachin? Everyone listened closely to the audio since they couldn't tell what was happening. You and two others might have broken me, but I'm not down and out yet. Everyone heard a dark menacing voice from Izuku and sounds of Bakugo in pain with the sound of something hitting the walls and floor. This scared many of the students since it sounded like something out of a horror movie. When the emergency generator finally kicked on, they looked in horror as Bakugo was beaten bloody with Izuku's foot on his chest with a sickening smile on him. All Might was going to call the match, but took note of the massive amount of scars that were on Izuku and tears coming off his face. Izuku started laughing like a madman and showed dead eyes to everyone to prove Izuku wasn't in the best state of mind at this point. The weapon All Might looked over to the area where Iida and the bomb was to see Ichako touching it. Hero team wins. The match was won by Izuku and Ichako, but many in the monitor room were scared of what Izuku became and thought the same thing. Whatever won the match against Bakugo wasn't Izuku or was what was left of him. In the nurse's office. As the matches finished, everyone began to leave with All Might telling Izuku to meet him in the school infirmary with Bakugo. While inside, Izuku spoke with All Might about his actions with Bakugo still badly beaten up from their fight. Young Midoriya, where did you obtain that power? Izuku remained silent with All Might assuming it was given to him. If someone gave you this power, you need to tell me right. No, it's a power I was born with. Bullshit, you never had a quirk until recently. You wanna shout bullshit, Kachin? I'll shout bullshit that both of you and that woman spouted me. Izuku pointed at All Might to begin. All I ever want to be is a hero that helps people. I held onto the small sliver of hope when hearing you say anyone can be a hero. But you're nothing but a hypocrite. Izuku pointed at Bakugo next. And you know what you and that woman did. Izuku got up in anger before saying one last thing. My quirk is called Siphon, look it up and pay close attention to how it's awakened. Izuku walked out and slammed the door shut to spook both Bakugo and All Might. All Might went into some info on Izuku to realize how the quirk is born. He immediately looked into his medical records to realize what happened. He attempted suicide the same day I spoke to him. This scared All Might with Bakugo making a small quip. Too bad he failed. Then again, he could never do anything right. The amount of calmness in Bakugo worried All Might. He didn't know what to say or ask, so he left. Many questions flew into All Might's mind, but few were answered. As he got near a window, he watched Izuku walk out of the school with Ichako and Midoriya. If I remember correctly, young Hado and Ryukyu came to root for him during the exams. Perhaps the dragon hero knows of young Midoriya and young Bakugo's past a bit. All Might walked away calling Ryukyu's agency to see if she can help him with this problem. Chapter 8. As hours passed and school was over, All Might went to Ryukyu's agency and asked the secretary to schedule a meeting with Ryukyu as soon as possible. When he finally got his meeting, he wanted answers now. All Might, to what pleasure do I owe your visit? All Might himself seemed annoyed that Ryukyu sounded nonchalant as if nothing was wrong. I need answers now about your new protege. Where did he get his quirk? If he's been in communication with a villain, it's my duty to arrest any and all of his associates. Ryukyu was holding back her laughter as if this was the funniest joke she ever heard. All Might, can you give me your connection because you're smoking that good shit, because by the way you're talking, you're high off your ass. All Might did not deem this very funny and began getting angry. The quirk Izuku has is a unique one that does not show up like others. To be honest, you are partly the reason why Midoriya has it. Ryukyu stopped laughing and began to glare at him. The quirk does not show up in most examinations and will only manifest when one is in a life or death situation. Do you wish to know what Midoriya's was? All Might felt a lump in his throat as the dragon hero gave him a smile. He already told me he tried to kill himself. Good, so you understand how he obtained it. But how do I come into it? Ryukyu sat in her chair and began to stare at All Might with agitation. That boy idolized you. He held your belief that anyone can be a hero to heart and held on to that belief. All he ever wanted to do was be a hero that helps people, and you tell him the only words that he had to rely on being wrong. I didn't mean that just anyone can be a well, then you should have rephrased that better. All Might sat in the seat remembering something else he wanted answers on. His body was covered in scars. What happened? Ryukyu looked at All Might unsure if he was serious or not. I suppose you can ask your student you put a recommendation in about. It isn't my place to say, but you should understand your protege is not as innocent as he should be to work for the symbol of peace. Ryukyu stated the last part with sarcasm to prove she has lost all respect for the hero. All Might asked one final question before he left. Young Midoriya spoke of a third person, a woman. Do you know anything about that? I do, but that is also something I am not at liberty to say. To put it in the best way, you were the final crack in a person who was already about to shatter. Both myself, my intern, and her friend took the fragments and restored them back to what he resembled. However, you can only fix so much that has been broken. The parts I could not fix are ones that hold you and two others as good people in his book. All Might heard this and left. As he did, Ryukyu sipped from some tea she had remembering that Nijire and Ichako had a special question she wanted to ask Izuku. I hope you find happiness Midoriya, you deserve it. But the trio. As this conversation was brought to the end, Izuku, Ichako, and Nijire were in the city enjoying a little time to themselves. They decided to spend the day looking around and window shopping in the Kiyashi shopping district. They weren't looking for anything specific, just anything that caught their eyes. They decided to stop at a jewelry store that had some nice pieces that both girls seemed to like. They looked around a bit before Izuku found something nice for the two of them. He asked the shop owner how much the items were and found them in his price range. He bought them and brought them to the girls. Ichako, Nijire, I have something you two may like. Izuku gave them both necklaces that had an emblem of the sun on Ichako's and the moon on Nijire's. Do you both like it? Both girls smiled and hugged Izuku. You didn't have to do this Izuku. Yeah, it's sweet, but you didn't have to go out of your way to do this. Izuku smiled before hugging back. I don't mind. You both did so much for me, I should at least try to return the favor. They let go and began their journey again. As they did, they stopped at some stores to find some cute things on sale that matched each of them, a few new button-down shirts for Izuku that suited him nicely, and stopped at a pet cafe to play with cats. The three had a blast with them stopping to find Camine and Bakugo out on a date. No way you gots to introduce me when I transfer. Sure, but when are you transferring? Camine smiled as she said this. I should start UA on Monday. Hearing this made Izuku go pale. He thought he was over her, but hearing her be in UA made him sick to his stomach. Come on Izuku, let's go. Ichako and Nijire brought Izuku to Ichako's house, with the three sitting in the living room. Izuku started to feel a little better getting away, but he was still shaken up notably. To help, both girls leaned on him and rested their heads on his shoulders. I'm okay you two. There's no need to worry. Both girls looked down for a moment before Ichako asked something. Izuku, what do you think of us? What do you mean? She means as if you like us in a romantic way. Izuku felt a bit of unease with this before answering. If it's like that, I'd have to say that Ichako is like the sun forever shining. Your smile is what brightens the day for me. Well Nijire is like the moon. Even on the darkest night, you shine and illuminate the night. If I could be anything to you two, I'd be the luckiest man in the world. But dating one of you is something completely out of my league. Izuku held his head down with both girls going to face his front. Never say someone's out of your league before you try. Nijire says this with kissing Izuku on his lips before parting to give Ichako the chance to do the same. As Izuku realized what just happened, he turned red before asking what just happened. Why you mean you both me huh? Yes Izuku, me and Nijire both like you have no idea how embarrassing that was to give you our first kisses. Ichako hit her head in Izuku's chest, with Nijire a little red. So how will this work? We've been able to make it work up to now, so let's just keep doing what we're doing. When it comes to something else, we'll talk about it. Izuku held his head down a little before saying something. I'm sorry that I couldn't give either of you my first kiss. Both hugged him saying they didn't care and just enjoyed the moment together. When it came time for Izuku to head home, he kissed Ichako goodnight and walked with Nijire to the station. They kissed one last time before Izuku got off to head home. He got in and went straight to bed thinking of what his life was going to be like now. Dating both Nijire and Ichako. A smile was seen on his face with this thought crossing his mind. Maybe this is what they mean by love after loss. Chapter 9. The next day Izuku had woken up like a new man. He felt reborn, but at the same time he felt as if last night was a dream. Once he was fully dressed he walked out into the living room. There he saw Ichako, Nijira and his mother having a morning cup of coffee. "Good morning Izu," both Nijira and Ichako simultaneously said as they hugged him and gave him a good morning kiss on the lips. His mother was proud to know he was in a relationship with not one but two beautiful girls who truly treasured him. "Last night wasn't a dream, was it?" he asked, hoping that they wouldn't vanish as if it were a dream. Nijira and Ichako shook their head as he noticed the sun and moon necklaces he bought them. They then said goodbye to Inko and headed off to school with the trio holding hands. When they got to school, Nijira was about to go to her class, but Izuku gave her a peck on the lips. "We'll see you later." Nijira happily skipped to her class with a more bubbly attitude than usual. Izuku and Ichako had walked to class together while still holding hands. As they got to the classroom they let go and went to their respective seats. When the tardy bell rang the whole class was silent until Izawa had crawled in with his sleeping bag. "Alright class, you're getting better with shutting up now. Before we begin I'd like to address some things from yesterday's battle training. Bakugo, that little stunt you pulled nearly killed someone. You do something like that again and I will expel you without a second thought. You have talent, but that only gets you so far. Midoriya, I won't question what happened between the two of you since it's a touchy subject to my opinion, but I can't have you do what you did again. How can a hero help someone if he needs help himself?" Izuku held his head down a little with Bakugo getting irritated that he's getting threatened with expulsion. "Now for the next part, what we will be doing will determine your time here. Everyone panicked if this is another test where someone could be expelled if they fail. You need a class rep." Without warning, everyone was relieved it was normal school stuff and began shouting for who wanted to be it. As people kept saying they should be it, Iida suggested doing a vote with everyone thinking this was kinda better when he said his reason. Many in the class were unsure if this was the proper way to decide seeing as they only have known each other a few days, but in the end that's how it was done. When the results were in, Aizawa had counted the votes and announced the class rep and vice rep. "Alright, class rep will be Izuku Midoriya and his vice rep will be Momoyaoi Rozu." The two students who were chosen stood up before the class. Izuku was still nervous, but Momo was upset she didn't get class rep. Bakugo, being his violent and unruly self, began to holler, "Who voted for the shitty nerd? I'm more suited to lead you extras." After his temper tantrum, the bell rang and everyone headed for lunch. Izuku was still unsure if he was fit to lead when he felt a reassurance from Ichako. "Don't worry Izu, I'm sure you'll be a great class rep." Izuku could only smile at Ichako before answering. "Thanks. I'll do my best." She smiled at him back before a pair of hands covered his face. "Guess who?" Izuku heard Nijira and began to make a joking answer. "Kind voice, soft hands, happy sounding person to see me." I don't know, could it be Nijira?" She pulled her hands away to smile down at Izuku. "Correct. Time for your prize." She gave Izuku a kiss on his lips with Ichako following after. This gave a smile to the three with Bakugo taking note of this and making a snippy comment. "How long until these two look for a real man to satisfy them?" This comment made the girls glare daggers at the blonde enough where everyone near him sat a few seats away so they wouldn't be dragged in this. They turned their attention off Bakugo and back on each other while talking and enjoying their time together. "I did not know you and your Raka were dating Midoriya. Also, who's this woman you both seem to be familiar with?" Iida spoke while karate chopping the air. "I'm Nijira Hato, a third year and both me and Ichako are dating Izu." This comment came to a surprise to everyone with Kirishima crying tears from what he called a manly relationship. The trio kept talking about their relationship with each other and how they met before some alarms rang. "What is that? A code 3 alarm? That means someone was able to get past the gates." Nijira answers Iida with them moving towards the safest route to somewhere safe. To say the halls were a madhouse would be an understatement. Students were shoving everywhere to try and get past everyone. The group eventually found themselves slammed to the wall with all of them realizing it was the press. Trying to think of the best course of action, Izuku asks Ichako to make Iida float with him heading to the end of the corridor to tell everyone what's happening. Everyone calmed down after this with everyone going to their classes. When the class of Wano was together, Izuku decided to tell them he's giving the role of class rep to Iida since he was able to manage himself better in the situation prior better than he could. The only person who had an issue with this was Bakugo, who said he should be the leader instead. Iida happily accepted this role with everyone backing him up. Ichako thought Izuku was still thinking too little of himself but realized he was happy to give it to Iida. She brushed it off and just felt content her boyfriend was happy with himself. Chapter 10. After this commotion happened, Aizawa had announced that they would still attend the next part of hero training according to schedule. That's when he pulled a card that read rescue. All students were given the option to either wear their hero suit or gym clothes. Izuku saw his case with a note attached that read, "Dear Izuku Midoriya, Power Loader has taken the liberty to fix and upgrade your costume, adding Kevlar and elemental resistance materials to it. 34. Izuku was glad that he could wear his costume again. As he went to change, the guys just saw how many scars his body held, some looked like burn marks. He quickly got dressed and made his way to the bus where he met his other girlfriend Nijire Hado, who stood along two other third years. Nijire ran over to Izuku with him and Ichako smiling. She embraced both in a hug before they looked at her confused. "Nijire, what are you doing here? We were told to come as an example for you first years." "We?" Izuku and Ichako asked with a boy that looked like he was hiding his face and another that looked like a rip-off version of a character from Fallout. "So you're the Izuku Midoriya and Ichako Uraraka that Nijire talks about. It's nice to meet you." Izuku looked at them with Nijire introducing them. "Izuku, Ichako, this is Mirio Tagada and Tamaki Amajiki. They're my friends and also the other members of the Big Three." "Big Three? I'll explain it from here, Hado." Aizawa came over to look at everyone. "Okay, so the three behind me are the top 3 students of UA. More commonly known as the Big Three." Everyone was a little surprised with Bakugo only scoffing at this. "Just more people, I gotta show who's boss." Nijire was not exactly a fan of Bakugo to begin with and was ready to shoot a beam at him before Izuku held her hand. She looked at him and shook no to say he isn't worth it. Everyone piled on the bus with Mirio and Tamaki sitting across from Izuku, Ichako, and Nijire. As they drove off, Mirio started to ask a bit about Izuku. "So what does your quirk do, Midoriya?" Nijire said yours is special and wanted us to hear about it from you. Everyone listened closely with Izuku explaining it. "Well, my quirk is called Siphon and it kinda works like the name says. I can pull life energy out of anything. So long as it's not dust, it has life in it that I can pull. But that's not all." Izuku showed a seed to a flower that he had. "I can also give energy to things." As if by magic, the seed began to grow into a flower. "Depending on how much life energy I have stored, I can also increase my strength, speed, and regeneration factor. I can also transfer it to someone else." Izuku pulled the energy out of the flower again to make it wilt and die shortly after saying this. "I also need to be very cautious of how much I have in me or how long I'm out of cinch, since it can make me go into a coma-like state until my body readjusts itself." Everyone looked at Izuku amazed. "That's so amazing." Mirio smiles with Tamaki doing the same. "It would be if manifestation requirements wouldn't be so messed up." Everyone stopped marveling to look at Izuku. For this quirk to manifest, the holder needs to be in a near-death state. Now let's just say it wasn't pretty and kinda was how me, Ichako, and Nijire met. "Wait, what do you mean by it wasn't pretty?" Izuku looked at Kirishima before saying what he meant. "This quirk is unique because you're thought of as quirkless from all medical science until you almost die." Many looked with wide eyes while hearing this. "Life for me wasn't fair. People always looked down on me because they believed I was quirkless. Those scars aren't from what I think they are from, are they?" Aoi Rozu asks, remembering the scars from their first hero training and the broken look Izuku had. "People look at you differently when you don't have a quirk. Not a nice feeling. One day, I just couldn't deal with it anymore. People wanted to laugh at me just because I wanted to be a hero that would help people. One person even went so far as to tell me to jump off a building. A few other things happened that kinda pushed me to the edge that I don't want to say, and well." Izuku pulled his hair up to show a nasty scar from when he jumped. "This world was cruel enough to even give me a slow death when I tried to end it all." Ichako and Nijire held Izuku during this, remembering how hurt and broken he was when they first saw him fall. The image still haunts them how much of his own blood he was covered in. Nijire saw blood before as an intern with Ryukyu, but seeing someone younger than her so broken haunts her memories with the occasional nightmare, with Ichako not feeling that much different. "I'm sorry I asked." Mirio held his head down as Izuku hugged Nijire and Ichako. "Don't be. Because of my brush with death, it opened my world a bit. I found some amazing people, understood how much my life mattered to my family, and gave me a second chance. I may have been put through the ringer, but I wouldn't change a thing if it meant I wouldn't have what I do today with me." Izuku smiles with it causing a huge impact on everyone. "Now I see why Nijire likes you. You're a kind person, Midoriya, who doesn't take what he has for granted. Please treat our friend well and make her happy. That's all we wish for you to do, Amajiki." "Oh please, you're still nothing but a loser. Deku always have been, always will be." Everyone glares at Bakugo with it not giving a good impression on some of them. The boys that noticed the burn marks in particular since they began thinking he did those. The bus stopped with Aizawa getting up. "We're here. Get off." Everyone started walking off with Aizawa grabbing Izuku for a second. "I want to ask you an honest question, Midoriya." Izuku looked at his teacher with him staring as if he was looking into Izuku's own soul. "Did Bakugo cause any of this abuse to you?" Izuku looked away at this. Please don't do anything. It's done and over with. I doubt that. But I won't do anything about the past events if you answer me honestly right now. Izuku hesitantly answered Aizawa's question. Yes. How much? A lot. Was he the one to tell you to jump? Izuku kept silent. Sigh okay. I won't tell anyone what you said. But if he does try this again, I won't stand for it. It's wrong to happen, but it's worse if it continues to without stop. As your teacher, it's my duty to help you all. Now go stand in line while 13 explains what's going on. Izuku nodded before walking over to Ichako and Najire. Aizawa came behind the class glaring at Bakugo. 13 continued with explaining that they will be doing rescue training with them entering into the building. As they did, a portal opened with a large amount of villains crawling out with a man covered in hands, speaking in a scratchy tone that sent shivers down everyone's spines. We are the League of Villains, and we have come here to kill All Might. Chapter 11. When the class saw the purple portal open, Kirishima asked, is this part of the training? The group who appeared before them had declared that they were there to kill All Might. Izuku knew that this wasn't the rescue training they had planned. They're real villains, shouted Izuku as Aizawa put on his goggles and began to give orders to Gata with Mihado, Tamaki and 13 keep the class safe. As Aizawa and Mirio had lunged down the stairs to meet a small army, one villain was too overconfident. Look guys, these clowns think they can take all of us down. The said villain tried to use his quirk, to which it failed for some reason. What the he was cut off by a kick from Aizawa. Another tried to hit Mirio in the heat with him going completely through and getting a punch to the gut. How do you plan to stop All Might? Mirio asked this with another few villains trying to punch him to only force him below the surface and rocket back up to take them down. As this went on, Iida had tried to run out for help with a man made of black fog covering their way. Hello, we are the League of Villains. We were informed that All Might should have been here, but he is not. Might there have been a change in the itinerary for today? The Black Mist Man was met by Bakugo and Kirishima, trying to attack him with them, and most of the students being shrouded in black mist. Now, disperse. Izuku found himself falling with Najire and two of his classmates Tsu and Mineta. As they hit the water, he tried to defend himself from a shark person trying to eat him. He was saved by Tsu, who then helped lead his way up to the surface. Najire, Tsu and Mineta were getting on a boat. When they did, they found themselves surrounded by villains with water quirks. Midoriya, do you have any plan on how we're going to get out of here? He was about to answer when he felt something poke his chest. As he checked the pocket inside the costume, he found a chain and small capsule, along with a note which read. I call it, Life Chain. By putting your own skin cells into the metal, you can transfer life energy through it the same way as if you were touching someone or something. The problem is, it only gives you about 75% of what you would have gotten if you touched them directly. The chain can also get stronger if you absorb energy. Ribitsu looked in amazement with Najire looking at the situation they're in. Izuku clicked the capsule only for a giant buster sword to appear. Clicking another button, it reverted to a capsule. This will come in handy. Why did they send two people who this would be a cakewalk for here? Izuku heard this with the same thought. Maybe they don't know our quirks or something. Maybe. As they thought of this, Mineta started throwing strange balls on his head into the water. You stupid villains have a taste of my sticky balls. His what? Najire was going to ask about them, but noticed the villains avoiding them. This proved hers and Izuku's belief correct, with them both getting an idea. Najire decided to grab Tsu, who held onto Mineta, while Izuku created a distraction. He would use his chain to absorb as much life energy out of the water itself, while they flew back to shore with him not far behind. As they did this, the villains tried to attack them with Izuku grabbing his large sword on his back. He kept the chain connected to his waist as he pulled the sword up above him and slashed down at the water. You wanna hit my girlfriend? See how it feels when I hit you. The act made the water part before slamming back in on itself. As the ship went down, Izuku tried to get a running start and jumped as far as he could. Unfortunately, he only got half the way before beginning to fall into the water. Before he hit though, Najire held him up with her quirk to make him float over to them. Thanks. We got each other's backs in this. Both smiled as they dropped near the shoreline. As they did, Izuku gave Najire enough energy back to bring her stamina back to full from the act they just did. When they were near the center of the plaza again, they watched as Aizawa got beaten down by a giant monstrous thing that had a bird's beak and its head open to show its brain. Mirio was trying to do anything against this thing to only achieve a few solid punches that did nothing. Things got worse when the beast shook the ground a bit to make the blonde lose his balance and have his head slammed to the ground to knock him out. Mirio. Najire started to get mad that someone was hurting her friend with the black wisp coming down near a man with blue hair and hands covering himself. My apologies Shigaraki, but one of the students had escaped. The now known Shigaraki started scratching his neck frantically before speaking. Kurogiri, if you weren't so important, I'd kill you right now. He began thinking to try and leave with the four sighing in relief. But just as they were, Shigaraki lunged at Tsu with the attempt to kill her. Midoriya and Izuku reacted with only the brain beast blocking them to push towards Shigaraki. Nobody is going to lay a finger on these first years and get away with it. You wanna hurt my friends, you gotta go through me first. Izuku glared at them with Shigaraki smiling like a madman. Nomu, kill these pests. The beast known as Nomu ran at them to get tangled in a chain on his feet. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. Izuku smirked at this with Midoriya going over to attack Shigaraki. As she did, Kurogiri opened a portal that was directly behind Izuku. He held his hand out to let the energy be absorbed with it, looking like he wasn't phased. Not gonna work on me. Midoriya's attacks are energy-based, so I'm kinda immune to her attacks. Shigaraki started to scratch his neck frantically while shouting. Nomu, kill these pests now. The beast started standing with the chains loose around its legs to attack Izuku. Izuku dodged him while trying to hit the beast's head with a 50 pounds metal weight on the end of his chain. It missed to be caught by Izuku. You don't like my chains, let's see how you like this. Izuku pulled his sword out to hit the beast in its torso and sent him flying. That didn't go all the way through, but he shouldn't be a problem anymore, considering how much I pulled out. Izuku started to emanate an unsettling amount of energy with Tsu and Mineta taking the time to help take Mirio and Izawa off the field. Meanwhile, Midoriya was having difficulty fighting both Shigaraki and Kurogiri. She'd regularly attack with it being redirected off of the two, while Shigaraki was attacking through portals to nearly grab her. He got close once or twice with turning part of her costume to dust in less than a second, but that was enough for her to know she didn't want him to touch her at all costs. Izuku immediately went over to try and give her support when he believed the fight with Nomu was over to make the odds a little more even. As this went on, Achako got an idea to use her quirk on a large boulder to place above Shigaraki's head. You wanna hurt my friends, then take this. She put her hands together to place gravity back on it and just barely missed Shigaraki. He glared up at her with anger. Nomu kill the hitch. The beast came back as if Izuku's attack did nothing with Achako being unable to move from fear. The Maki pushed her out of the way to only get hit into the door and get knocked out. It turned to Achako now with Izuku coming at it as fast as he could to tackle it to the ground. He began to absorb everything he could with it doing nothing. You're not going to kill Nomu. He was made to kill All Might. Try as you might, you will never kill Nomu. Izuku noticed that the beast could replenish its energy just as fast as he could take it. Without many options and his limit being close to how much he can hold before it causes serious problems, he got an idea. If you can replace what I take, what happens when you hold too much in you? Izuku dug his fingers deep into the monster's skin as he shouted. Max transfer. The beast began breathing heavy before starting to cough up blood. Nomu, what's happening? I gave him the energy he had back. If he can replenish it, that means what he had before is now excess. If someone has too much excess in their body, it becomes a problem for their bodily functions. Nomu started bleeding out its eyes and mouth as it screamed in pain before it stopped moving. The act made its heart stop and the brain stop functioning in an instant. It couldn't even regenerate, it happened that fast. Izuku stood up exhausted with the doors opening to the pros. These pesky heroes. Time to pull back Kurogiri. As they did, Izuku looked over and flipped off Shigaraki. You wanted to mess with my girls and friends, next time will be you. The portal closed with Izuku dropping from exhaustion. Midoriya and Achako ran to him, noticing he was out cold. They brought him to the nurse's office and sat waiting for him to wake up for hours before he finally woke up. What happened? You idiot, both hit him over the head before hugging him. He felt that they were crying for him before he spoke. I'm sorry I worried you all. Are you both okay? They nodded with Izuku hugging them. That's a relief. The door opened to Tamaki and Mirio, who immediately saw this was a moment and shut it to stay in the halls. They smiled knowing how courageous Izuku and Achako were to know Midoriya had a nice friend and boyfriend by her side. Meanwhile with Bakugo. Bakugo was asked by Izawa to talk to him in the infirmary. 13 was able to move after some treatment and was told that he could go home to leave the two alone. Bakugo didn't know what this was about until Izawa pointed something out to him. I know what you did to Midoriya. Bakugo didn't understand what he was talking about. I won't do anything about the damage done to him right now, but be aware that I will be keeping a closer eye on you and will bring this up to the school board regardless of what I promised Midoriya if you get out of line. What did the shitty nerd tell you? I came to this conclusion and asked him for confirmation. All he did was answer some questions. So let's make this clear, you will be on a tighter leash than most. You slip up and cause any unnecessary harm to Midoriya or someone else to a state of it being bullying, I will expel you and bring up the previous information I learned from Midoriya to the board of heroics. You will never be a hero if that happens, understand? Bakugo gritted his teeth and nodded. Good, now get out. Bakugo left with some agitation. Unknown to the two, All Might had been listening with him starting to worry what happened. He knew Izawa wasn't an easygoing teacher, but he wouldn't threaten anyone he didn't think had good reason. He walked away thinking on this and a possible mistake he might have made. Chapter 12. The day after the villain attack, classes were cancelled in order for the teachers to plan on how to proceed forward from that point on. Then the topic of incoming transfer students was put on the table. As you all know, we have an incoming transfer student who goes by the name Camine Utsushimi. What shall we do about her transfer? This was brought up by Vlad King, Class 1B's Hero Course teacher. Principal Nezu replied quickly, "Send an apology email, because we cannot risk anyone else's safety, so from here until further notice, we will not accept anyone transferring in." But Bakugo. At the moment Kitsuki was shitting bricks because if he slipped up again that was it, no more hero career. He tried not to think about it until his phone was going off. It was Kami. Bakugo got a rejection email from UA. Her crying made Kitsuki upset. Then one person ran through his mind, Deku. He screamed over the phone as he explained it to Kami how he's on thin ice thanks to Deku. This only upset her even more, so she cried again and Kitsuki assured her that he had connections to get her in. Kitsuki then called All Might and demanded he do something and get Kami in by Monday, only to be told, "I'm sorry young Bakugo, but just because I'm the #1 hero doesn't mean I can overrule the school's decision." All Might hung up the phone, leaving Kitsuki shaking in rage as he screamed Deku. But Izuku, Mirio and Tamaki decided to invite Izuku out for some guys only hangout. Before agreeing, he told Nijira and Ichako about it and were completely okay with it since they wanted him to have guy friends. Izuku met up with both of them and began to have a blast hitting arcades, the bowling alley, and grabbing a bite to eat. Things were great. Things hit a brick wall when two of the worst possible people could walk through the restaurant they were in. Oh crap, Izuku ducked under the table with Bakugo and Kami walking past their table. Not sure what the issue was, Mirio looked under to ask. "What's wrong, buddy?" The two that came in. "One's my childhood bully and the second is my cheating ex." Tamaki looked over and remembered the guy. "Isn't that the guy from your class?" Sadly. Izuku was able to get up after hearing that they were in their own conversation. As they sat there, they began to overhear their conversation a bit. "So apparently this is the school board's decision from what I could get. I'm almost guaranteeing this has something to do with the shitty nerd. He's the only asshole that could be able to do something like this. That little twerp should have just died when he jumped off that roof." Hearing this made Mirio jump out of his seat in anger. Tamaki stopped him though, seeing how calm Izuku was. They didn't do anything yet and just listened closely. If he was half the man he should have been, he would have at least had some quirk. At least he was a cute little whipping boy. Kami put a bit of sugar in her coffee before smiling rather sickly. "I can't tell you how much fun it was getting what I wanted with him, opening cards up, making crazy amounts of cash, and the bruises I inflicted on him. I'm personally fond of that cute little X that I put on his back." She started to giggle with Mirio and Tamaki now getting floored with this. "Midoriya, how can you be so calm? She's literally insulting you right now." Mirio silently shouted this with Izuku taking a bite of a fry he had. "She cannot say anything about me that can hurt me anymore. I learned that getting angered by her actions like this only causes me more issues in the future." Izuku smiled as he went to take a bite out of his burger. "You know something, maybe we should try to hurt him another way. Kinda like proof he should have kept his mouth shut about you, Bakugo." Izuku was hardly paying attention until Bakugo suggested something. "He has 2 girlfriends, maybe do something to make them look like cheap sluts." Izuku stopped ignoring them when Nijira and Ichako were brought into the conversation. "Those 2? I met them and can almost guarantee they're nothing but women that are easy lays. Maybe we can throw him a bone and make some fake images of his girlfriends getting both holes filled. One hangs out with 2 guys, so I wouldn't be surprised if her cunt is filled with some other guy's jizz while she's making out with Deku." Izuku had enough of hearing this. He got up and walked to the table. Bakugo immediately saw him and gave him a stink eye. "What do you want, Nur?" Izuku punched Bakugo in the face and broke his nose. "I can take insults about me. But don't you ever insult Ichako or Nijira again, you piece of shit." He turned around to get hot coffee thrown into his face by Kami. He didn't flinch as this happened. "You honestly thought that would hurt?" She began to go pale with Izuku glaring at her with his eyes red from some coffee being in his eyes. "After the bruises, whipping, cuts, burns, and the emotional agony you inflicted on me, you honestly thought some hot coffee in the face would work? See, can't blame a girl for trying." Kami held her arms over her face with Izuku only walking away. He put the money for lunch on the table before apologizing to a waiter and leaving. Tamaki and Mirio paid for their meal before walking out to see him, trying to calm his nerves a bit. "Midoriya, you okay?" Tamaki asked while Izuku pulled some life energy out of the ground to quicken the healing of the burns on his face. "Better than I was before." That took a lot of guts, man." Mirio was kinda surprised how well Izuku took that. "I've had a lot of practice being a whipping boy. None of what they said about me could manage to hit me." "So what made you snap, man?" Izuku took a deep breath before answering Mirio. I don't know, the second they started insulting Najira and Ichako, it kinda hit a nerve. They have done nothing but help and support me since they met me. They visited me in the hospital, helped me home, even invited me out on outings with them when they didn't have to. Hearing them want to hurt two people that did all that for me before we started dating made me kinda lose it. Izuku's face felt all healed with some excess energy still in his body. He placed it back into the ground with some of the grass regrowing back. Could you two do me a favor? Both guys listened to the request. Could you not tell Najira or Ichako this happened, please? They worry about me enough and don't want to feel bad that this was ruined because of something like this. Sure. As long as this doesn't become an issue in the future, this never happened. Izuku smiled knowing that this isn't something to fear as they walked to a convenience store to pick up some soft drinks to cool their heads. But the girls. Considering Izuku, Mirio, and Tamaki had done a guys hangout, Najira asked Ichako if she wanted to do a girls hangout with her, agreeing. They hung out in Najira's room doing their nails and talking about how things are with Najira, talking about some funny stories that happened with Mirio and Tamaki that she found kinda humorous about the two. As they were watching a movie though, Ichako looked over to Najira for a second. Hey Najira, do you think Izu is happy with us? Why do you think that? Ichako fiddled with her fingers a bit when answering. I asked his mom a little while ago about Camie and she said that she was a nice girl until she let her true colors show. I'm scared Izuku may think that way about us. Najira hugged her friend before answering. Camie lied, abused, and cheated on Izuku. We keep an honest, healthy, and pure relationship where we respect each other. We're nothing like her and Izu knows that. Ichako smiled thinking this. You're right. I shouldn't worry about that. As they said this, they both had the strangest feeling that Izuku was defending them. Knowing him, this probably did happen and slightly hoped that he gave a good punch to Bakugo who deserved this to no end in their opinions. But Bakugo and Camie. Bakugo had to go to the hospital to get his nose stitched with Camie taking a trip to explain the situation. As they did, Mitsuki came in and was trying to get down to why Izuku of all people punched Bakugo. Her son explained the story as he said with Izuku just walking up and punching him without believing a word. She knew Izuku too well to think he would do this. So, she put pressure on Camie who wasn't that good with Mitsuki to begin with. When this happened, Camie mentioned that they were kinda bad-mouthing Izuku and some girls with Mitsuki smacking Bakugo upside the head. She said he deserved this and that if she hears this happens again, the blonde would have to find a new home to screw in. One thing was certain for the two though, they were now even more pissed off with Izuku than they already were. Chapter 13. When classes resumed, a lot of the guys were asking Katsuki Bakugo why he had a cast on his nose. He just answered with the usual buck off. The bell rang, signaling the start of class, and they wondered who would teach since Izawa was still beaten pretty bad. It wasn't until Izawa himself walked through the door many were in awe of his dedication to continue working. Izuku raised his hand, yes Midoriya. Acknowledging Izuku until signaling he could speak, would you like me to accelerate your healing? Izawa pondered the option for a bit until he weighed his pros and cons. He responded yes, can you please accelerate my healing? Izuku walked up to Aoi Rozu. Excuse me Aoi Rozu, can you please make me 2 balls made or iron, preferably the size of a baseball? She nodded and made the 2 items in question. He placed one in his blazer pocket, he then siphoned the life force from the ball in his hand. When he opened it, all that was left was a pile of rust that he dumped into the trash can. He placed a hand on Izawa max regen. Izawa then felt a power surge through his entire body, along with bruises and remaining fractures healing quickly. Once Izawa was healed, he began the major announcement. Thank you Midoriya, now let's begin because you all have another obstacle ahead. Many students of Wano were worried since they just survived a villain invasion. The UA Sports Festival is upon us. This is an opportunity that none of you can afford to miss. A heavy sigh was let out since the class was worried that it was something worse. When all was said and explanations were done, class was dismissed for lunch. Just as everyone left, All Might appeared in front of Katsuki. Young Bakugo, I am here, care to eat lunch with me? Katsuki then left with All Might, which surprised many since Izuku was the one they expected to be called out. But All Might and Katsuki. The two were seated and All Might had a laptop in front of him, as if he was pulling up files. Katsuki was confused, care to explain this? The video that was playing before Katsuki was of him assaulting Izuku with his quirk in the middle of the hallway. How did you get this? It was bucking Deku Wasn't it? In frustration, All Might transformed into buff form and got up in Katsuki's face. Lower your tone boy, he said, as if he spoke to a villain, which caused the boy to back down in fear. The next video that he showed him was where he was bucking Camine Utsushimi. He paled. Do you know how much trouble you could be in if I hadn't had a good friend isolate the video and edit the download link to send them to a fake virus page? With this spread around, you could face federal charges for spreading child pornography. It would kill your hero career instantly. It was bucking Deku who sent you all this information. Wasn't it? All Might grabbed the boy's shoulders and shook him until he told him, I found this video uploaded from this girl's social media. When I read the comments and read this was once the girlfriend of young Midoriya. Katsuki was shitting bricks now. Where did you get this? All Might paw flashback. I decided to do some digging around about my successor. It led me to Eldera Junior High where I learned young Bakugo was considered the big man on campus. When I asked of any and all evidence about him having a violent behavior, they laughed it off. I left thinking nothing about it. It wasn't until someone returned some money I supposedly dropped. Among the cash I saw a note that read, if you want the truth about Katsuki Bakugo, meet me at XXXXX. Don't be late. I made my way into a parking garage structure. The sun was setting. I was going to leave, not before a hooded figure called out to me. Glad you came, All Might. Here is all the evidence you need on Katsuki Bakugo. I'll tell you now, that kid isn't hero material. The hooded figure slid a box of DVDs. When I went home, I saw the first one. I realized that they were security recordings. Back to present. Now young Bakugo, I've had the patience of a saint with you, hoping you change, but that isn't the case. Return to me one for all so that I may truly find a worthy successor. Katsuki was boiling with anger and returned the quirk before he left the office. As this happened, all he could do was fume with rage, thinking this was all Izuku's fault. But Izuku. As Izuku sat down with Najire, Achako, and some of their classmates, Iida began a conversation. So not only can you heal yourself, but you can also heal the injuries of others with your life energy. Fascinating. I'm sure Mr. Aizawa even appreciates it. Ribbit. Izuku smiled a bit as Tamaki hit himself a bit. Izuku looked down a little worried for his and Najire's friend. What's the matter? I just can't handle other people that well. I try to imagine your friends as potatoes, but only their heads turn into them. I can't handle this. Mirio tried to reassure his friend as well. It's alright, Tamaki. They're good people and won't be mean. They probably also think you're cool. I'm sorry, Mirio, but I can't handle people as well as you and Najire. The easier way to handle this, Tamaki, imagine people in their underwear and it makes you feel a little better knowing they should be more embarrassed than you. Izuku pointed this out with Tamaki trying it. He looked around and seemed to handle it a little better, but held a blush while looking at everyone. Out of one problem and into the next. Everyone thought this as they kept eating. Hey. So what are you all going to do for the sports festival? Everyone thought of this while explaining how they're going to train. Izuku didn't put much effort in this and started to question what he should do as well. As he thought about this, he felt someone elbow him in the head. Oh, I'm sorry, must have been hard avoiding that big dumb head of you, Class A swine. Everyone looked behind to see some guy with blonde hair that sounded like he was a barking chihuahua. No worries. How can I help you, friend? Izuku smiled as the blonde held a disgusted face. You're so optimistic. But understand that Class B shall be the ones to succeed in stomping you Class A filth. The blonde walked away with everyone very confused on what just happened. What was that about? Everyone shrugged their shoulders, not sure just what that was going on. Chapter 14. The school gave the students 2 weeks off in order to prepare for the sports festival. Izuku, Achako and Najire were training with Ryukyu to be prepared, along with Izuku working to see about an idea for a special move. For the first half of their training sessions, the four would do a little one-on-one sparring with alternating partners now and again. After, they would work on their quirks with any way to keep them ready for the event. Achako wanted to try and increase her skill with her zero-gravity quirk, with Najire helping her with staying up in the air. Meanwhile, Izuku practiced doing something he had done prior at the USJ, when he split the lake in the flood zone. Just focus. Remember what happened before. Izuku thought back to the incident and felt life energy condense in his hands during this. In theory, Izuku thought that maybe he could use life energy similar to if he was expelling it out in a more refined power. Alright, now let's see what happens when you expel that power in one singular shot. Izuku used his one hand to shoot it out. Unfortunately, it only made a single small attack that barely made a dent in the tree. Not bad for just doing it a few times. As they said this, the tree started decaying and falling over. Maybe we're not as far from the start than we believe. Izuku started to freak a little, knowing if he did anything like this at the sports festival, he may actually kill someone. Day of festival. As the day of the festival had finally arrived, Izuku was hyping himself up in his mind since he had trained hard for this very day. He meditated for a bit only to be disturbed by Todoroki Shoto Midoriya. Izuku looked up to see his classmate Shoto Todoroki. Why yes. He stuttered as he responded to Todoroki. We all witnessed your power at USJ. It is without a doubt in my mind you're the most powerful competitor here. I won't lose to you, so you can accept this as my declaration of war to you. Everyone was shocked to hear this just minutes before the start of the festival. Whoa Todoroki, why proclaim war right now, aren't we friends? Shoto scoffed, we're here to be heroes, not make friends. "Hey you half and half bastard, you declared war on the wrong person," shouted Katsuki with tons of pent-up rage after having relinquished one for all. The intercom went off and the announcement was made for all participating students to make their way to the field. When all participating classes arrived on the field, they waited until midnight appeared, who was the proctor for the first year sports festival. "Before we begin, can we get freshman representative Izuku Midoriya up here?" Izuku was nervous until he felt someone hold his hand. He looked left and saw Ichako nodding as he began to make his way up to the podium. As Izuku was in front of the mic, Midnight told him, "Whenever you're ready." Izuku heard a few members of the other classes say comments such as it's only because he placed first in the hero course that he's the representative. And of course it's a hero course student. Showing they hold some resentment towards him and his classmates. He took a deep breath before speaking. "Thank you all for coming here today. Over all of our time before UA, we have faced our own hardships and progressed in our own ways towards our dreams. Each trial, each test, and each event that makes us better to shape us into who we are today. Through these trials, we sometimes forget who is in our corner supporting us. Because of those people who we can lean on, we have been able to make it this far in our lives. So for those who are willing to stand by our sides, I thank you on behalf of every student here. We all will give it our best shot to become the greatest we can and perform on this stage with honor and integrity." Izuku bows for everyone to look rather surprised since he spoke with respect to everyone here. Everyone claps with Izuku standing up to see a banner with a big 3 and Ryukyu in the stands cheering for him and Ichako. He steps down for Midnight to mention the first event. "Now for our first event, a wheel spun for it to stop at an event. Obstacle course." Chapter 15. After Izuku's speech, all participants were in position to start the first event. When the starting gun was fired, everyone was rushing the tunnel when Todoroki covered the floor with ice. Many couldn't walk due to how slippery it was. The ice bath had become water as Izuku siphoned the life force from the ice. Upon doing so, it turned to water. With what energy Izuku absorbed, he was able to get close to the pack leaders, which were Todoroki and Bakugo. They were stopped in their tracks, however, by a giant amount of robots. Todoroki froze them all with some falling over due to how they were positioned. As they were running, Izuku got an idea with the pieces of the zero-pointer to grab a fragment before heading out. The next area was a pitfall area, with it being relatively easy for most. Thanks to some training he did with Ryukyu in ways of keeping balance with his body having excess or lack of life energy, Izuku was able to pass it rather quickly. Finally, the group came to the final obstacle, a minefield. Some people were already ahead of Izuku, with him realizing he's not going to win by just running over. Using his head, he started to shovel out the mines that were in the front to put them in a pile delicately. When he thought he had enough, he used a plating from the zero-pointer as a bobsled and skyrocketed to the front. He was able to pass both Todoroki and Bakugo, who were leading the pack, but knew this would change when he landed. To try to keep a lead, Izuku twirled around and slammed the frame on the ground to activate a few mines to send both of them back. The result gave Izuku a little more forward momentum to clear the last of the minefield and make it back first. Standing in the center, Izuku smiled with everyone cheering. He went to the side for the others to come, with Iida and Ichako coming over after they cleared to congratulate him. Izuku was happy he won, with the last person finally passing the finish line that was needed to start the next event. Midnight began to spin the wheel for it to stop on a title, Cavalry Battle. She explained that every person will be given a point value, with last place being worth 5, and each place after having an additional 5 from the first person who crossed the finish line after them. First, however, was to receive 10 million points to make Izuku a target, along with anyone that stuck with him. Everyone was given 10 minutes to make a team, with Izuku scrambling to find people. It seemed kinda hopeless until Ichako came to him. "Hey Izuku, let's be a team." "You sure about that, Ichako? Everyone will be after us if you join me." "It's fine. Besides, I'd rather be on your team." Her smile sent a heartthrob for Izuku, with him making a kinda ugly face. "So you're Mr. 10 million, huh? Let's pair up." A girl with pink hair and steampunk glasses came over to scare Izuku. "You're that guy with a weird quirk that can suck energy out of anything, right? How did my babies handle well in training?" Izuku and Ichako were confused as she began to explain. "You see, I was able to add on a few items and help rebuild your suit's basic design a bit, thanks to Mr. Powerloader giving me permission. So how did my life chain and buster sword handle for you?" Izuku now realized what she was talking about to answer with some happiness. "They worked amazingly. Thank you for adding them." He smiled at her while she began explaining other ideas she had along with items she brought. As this happened, Ichako started to get a little jealous of the pink gearhead's clinginess to hers and Najire's boyfriend. "But Najire, what does that hussy think she's doing with mine?" And Ichako's Izu Najire started to get a tad bit jealous, with her friends and teacher laughing a bit. "Didn't put you as the jealous type, Najire. I wouldn't be so jealous if that woman wasn't putting her hands all over my boyfriend. Ashi better not try to steal him from us, Izuku isn't like that Nijire. He respects you and your rocket too much to let it happen. Tamaki mentioned this with Mirio agreeing. I know, it just doesn't feel right though. Back on the field. Many who were able to move on to round 2 began to scramble making teams before time expired. So far Izuku attempted to recruit Iida, who then refused his offer due to wanting to compete properly. Izu, what are we going to do? We need one more person. Izuku went full strategist mode, thinking of the best candidate. When it hit him, he knew exactly who to ask. Please join my team. It was Tokoyami Fumikage who was asked to join Izuku when the team had come together. The second event was about to begin as the horn was blown and all teams were charging at Team Midoriya. Thanks to Hatsume's babies they were able to avoid losing their points. Time felt as if it was going slow. Izuku noticed that Tokoyami, Achako and Hatsume looked to be out of steam, so he placed one hand on him, transferring energy to them so they could stay strong. The halfway mark came with Izuku and his team now faced with Todoroki and his team. Izuku kept to the left side of Todoroki so his ice wouldn't hit them. Things went well until Iida came up with an idea for a special move. Without any reaction, they ran towards Izuku while grabbing the headband. Things seemed to work well for Todoroki's team before Kaminari started kneeling down as if he was about to collapse. Now Izuku's group charged at Todoroki's team and grabbed the 2 other headbands that were before the first. Izuku believed he must have swapped the order at some point but knew he'd get the 10 million with it. In the heat of the moment, Todoroki started using his left side's fire for Izuku to absorb some of his energy. I'm not letting you get the upper hand on me again. Izuku's team pulled him away with the countdown ending. Izuku's group led the pact with the 10 million, followed by Bakugo's, a Gen Ed student Shinso's, and Todoroki's team. Chapter 16. Halftime came with the last 16 competitors brought up. Ejiro and Shuta from Class B asked if they were to be withdrawn due to them not feeling right, accepting something that they didn't earn. This was allowed with 2 other members of Class B taking their place. The matches were determined through lots with Izuku worried for Ichako. Out of everyone she was facing, she was going against the worst person in the group that he'd wish she didn't have to. Bakugo. The group was given time for lunch with Todoroki asking Izuku to follow him. They got to a private location where Todoroki asked Izuku something. Midoriya, you seem to be against All Might. Why is that? Izuku looked down at his chest for a moment before answering. You remember how I said my quirk came from me committing suicide and one person pushed me past the point of no return the day I did? Wait, you're not saying. Izuku nodded. All Might said to me that day that I can't be a hero without a quirk. All my life, I held on to that slim chance of being a hero because of his words. Heh, a shame that turned out right. Todoroki held his left eye. How can you accept using that power then? If All Might was the final nail in the coffin, why use a power that he helped you gain? Izuku unzipped his shirt to reveal his body. I won't question yours, but this body has been through things you can't even begin to imagine. It's true All Might was the one that put the final nail, but the most went to a woman I believed I loved but tormented me, and a bastard who I believed was a friend who bullied me and was who my ex cheated on me with. I use this power not because I see it as something they allowed me to gain, but as a way to say, I survived. I lived in hell, I was beaten, bruised, and scared in levels you can't even begin to imagine. But I'm alive and I felt everything. Todoroki started to walk away with Izuku saying one final thing. Pain only hurts more if you let it fester in you. Eventually, you become numb to everything. If you're refusing your power for something revolving around your scar and what happened, don't let it control you. That's how you truly lose to it. Todoroki nodded as he walked away, understanding how Izuku feels his pain and is happy to know him. Izuku walked back to see a unique side of the members of Class A in cheerleader outfits. From what Izuku could gather, local pervs of Class A had swindled them into putting them on with Yaoi Rozu, making them for everyone. He started to get a nosebleed though seeing Ichako in the outfit and silently thanked the 2 for allowing him to see such a beautiful side, along with wishing to kill them for showing it to other people who he'd rather not see. As this went on, Nijire began to think of a possible cheerleader outfit display for Izuku since she wanted to show him herself in one as well. Maybe Izu will like it better if I show him it alone with Ichako. Nijire was broken out of her thoughts when midnight announced the beginning of the final event of the festival, which was the one-on-one fights. Now first up we have Izuku Midoriya from 1 and Hitachi Shinso from the General Ed course. The 2 students were ready to face off with Shinso attempting to rattle Izuku a bit. That quirk of yours is quite impressive. You must have lived an easy life up till now. Izuku had to stop himself from laughing at this with Shinso. He didn't understand what was so funny before Izuku got serious. He bolted to Shinso to grab him and push him out of the ring. But the insomniac wasn't having this. You think it's easy growing up with a villainous quirk? You would never understand the amount of mistrust people have in you. You don't understand just how painfully wrong you are. Izuku got near the edge where he lifted Shinso up and tossed him out of bounds. The crowd cheered with Shinso walking away. "Shinso, life isn't fair. I'll be the first to point this out." The mind control user looked over to see Izuku holding his hair up to show a vile scar. "Sometimes, death opens people's eyes. Your quirk though is amazing," from what Ijiro said. Izuku mentioned his tail friend who had told him of Shinso's quirk prior as a way to counter. Shinso looked at his fellow Gen Ed classmates who were cheering for him along with some pros who took note of his quirk prior. "Thanks for your kind words, Midoriya. I hope you get far." "Will do." Shinso put Izuku under mind control to make him pinch his cheeks. "You may want to work on that kindness, it'll get you into trouble." Izuku went back up to the benches to sit next to Ichako. Her nerves were on edge since she's facing the worst person to fight. The tension gets a little crazy when a giant glacier from Todoroki freezes half the field along with Zero. He thaws him out with a short intermission to get the stage clear with matches going on after streamlined. Finally, it came to Ichako's match with her nervousness beyond belief. Izuku tried to help her with a possible plan, but she declined, saying she wanted to win by her own strength. Izuku accepted this and kissed her forehead before going to the stands to watch. "Now for the next match, let's have Ichako Uraraka and Katsuki Bakugo come down here." Ichako was nervous, but knew she had to do her best to take him down. When the two were in the ring officially, they stared each other down. "Begin!" Midnight shouted as Katsuki became aggressive like a wild animal, shooting off explosions left and right. Ichako didn't have much breathing room, but she was collecting ammunition from all the rubble he was making due to his quirk. Then Izuku had a feeling Ichako had a card up her sleeve. When it seemed like enough rubble, Ichako shouted, "Release meteor shower." In one swift motion, Katsuki blasted the debris which left Ichako in shock. After doing that, he rushed her, then savagely landing body shots while creating explosions. Before she passed out, Katsuki whispered to her, "If you and your blue-haired friend want to know what a real man feels like, let me know." Midnight had to have Ichako taken to the infirmary quickly. Many who were rooting for her ran there to see if she was fine. Up in the stands, Izuku absorbed the railing and then ran to see Ichako in order to heal her before she got any scars. Izuku got there and healed her completely. She was then crying, apologizing for being weak. Izuku was able to shut her up by kissing her passionately. When he broke the kiss, he assured her, "Don't worry Ichako, I'll make it to the end and shatter his pride, that's a promise." Ichako smiled at this with Najire hugging her friend, saying how happy she was for her hard work. Izuku eventually got called for his battle with Todoroki for him to leave. He gave both girls a peck on the lips before running to where he needed to. Ichako was mad at herself from losing her match, but what Bakugo said when she almost passed out infuriated her. "Make him wish he never met you, Izu." Chapter 17. Izuku got to the field with Todoroki looking at him ready to fight. As the match started, Todoroki sent a barrage of ice at Izuku for it to melt at his touch. "Did you honestly think that would work? Just so I can taste your all when I give you mine?" Todoroki smirked as his fire half roared. Izuku started to focus power in his hands to make them glow before releasing what looked like pure energy at Todoroki. Their attacks clashed, with the blast going through the ice and fire to hit the bicolored boy in the chest. The act made Todoroki collapse and pass out, with Izuku being the victor. Time skipped to the final round. The next round of matches went rather smoothly, with the semi-finals both Izuku and Bakugo winning to have them face each other. Now came the moment Izuku's wanted for a while. Izuku glared down Bakugo, who smirked at him when Midnight told them to begin. Izuku charged at Bakugo, who sent an explosion. This was absorbed by Izuku, who went for a sucker punch. Bakugo grabbed his arm to try and throw Izuku, to only get grabbed and thrown himself. The blonde came at Izuku with a kick to be caught, with him using his free leg to hit Izuku across the face. He spat blood at Bakugo before kneeing his face in retaliation. Both went at the other to try and get them into a chokehold for it to end, with both not giving the other room to do anything. Bakugo started playing mind games with Izuku by hitting spots he knew hurt. "I bet those hitches you're always with haven't felt a single thing for a loser like you. When this is over, I'll make sure to show them personally what a real man feels like." This caused Izuku to lose his mind, to his anger to siphon Bakugo's energy out of him and hold his wrists tighter than he was to hear a snap from them. Bakugo tried to get back, with Izuku grabbing him to knee his gut. While on the ground, the green head grabs both arms and stomps on his shoulders to dislocate them. Son of a Midnight tried to call this, with Aizawa saying to let it continue. She didn't understand, but allowed it. In a fit of rage, Bakugo tried to blast Izuku to get him off, to only blast off his PE uniform's top half. In one movement, Izuku grabbed Bakugo's head to lift it up before slamming it hard enough on the cement arena to crack it. Bakugo didn't move after this, with Izuku standing up and shouting. What he didn't know during this was his shirt was nothing but cinders to show him damaged body. Many looked at Izuku with open mouths at how much damage was on his body. Some that were told or knew of Izuku's scars knew they had to be bad, but didn't know how. The common thought many believed when seeing them was that Izuku might have come out of a morgue. Technically speaking for them, they'd not be entirely wrong. The ones that were more traumatized by this were Mirio and Tamaki however. The kid that seemed to be so strong to them was so destroyed that it scared them. When awards were given out, Bakugo was unable to receive his due to injury, with only Tokoyami and Izuku standing to receive them. When All Might gave Izuku his, Izuku looked at the pro in disgust, as the reason he nearly died the first time was his fault. The pro apologized with Izuku saying it wasn't accepted before the final words of the festival were said. That evening, Bakugo went home enraged with most of his injuries being still there. While walking to his home, he saw Izuku there waiting for him. What do you want? Here to gloat. If I was here to gloat, I'd have Najire and Ichako here. Izuku held his hand out in front of him. Since it was my fault, let me heal your injuries. Screw you. Bakugo walked inside with Izuku shrugging his shoulders. I was trying to be a bigger man and help you. But you know what, take the scars. You left more than enough on me. Izuku left with these words seeing Mitsuki, Bakugo's mother, pass him. He said hello to her with her congratulating him on his win. He thanked her and started walking back home to Ryukyu standing outside talking to his mother. Izuku, I'm so proud of you. Inko hugged Izuku with all her might with him smiling at her. You truly did a marvel Midoriya, be proud of what you accomplished and progress from it. Izuku nodded at the dragon hero as she smiled at him. Inko went inside to try and start a little celebratory meal with Ryukyu stopping him. What did he say to push you into that state? Izuku was hesitant to answer. It was something petty. Which was? He said some things about Najire and Ichako that kinda made me lose it. Ryukyu sighed before letting him go. Emotions are a good thing to have Izuku, but do not let them cloud your judgment. Najire and Ichako both care too much about you and would never try to hurt you. I understand you don't like things said about them, but be careful when you go this far. Izuku nodded and said goodbye to Ryukyu before going inside to his mother, trying to make something sweet for them as a celebration. But Ichako watched a scene from the sports festival where Izuku beat the snot out of Bakugo with some satisfaction while hearing a knock at the door. She opened it to see her parents who came home from their construction agreement on the other side of the country to spend some time with their daughter. Ichako was happy about this with her mother noticing the scene of Izuku's shirt being blasted off to show Izuku's scars. Ichako saw this and went red seeing the muscle that was under the scar tissue with her father taking note of this. He decided to wait to ask her until tomorrow who the boy was to her with a good idea that this was the Izuku person they heard about from her prior talks. Chapter 18. It was the day after the sports festival the school decided to give the students a well-deserved break by giving them a 3-day break. The whole world was still in shock about the image that was engraved in their heads due to the winner of the festival having scars and extensive damage to his upper body as if he was fresh from the morgue. Izuku went to the bathroom and prepared himself for the day. The second he stepped out his mother greeted him. Good morning my festival champion she said while embracing him as tightly as possible. Mom, I love you and everything. But these hugs are going to choke me out if you keep doing them. Sorry sweetie. Inko let go with Izuku giving a smile at her. So what did you plan to do today? I was going to go and meet up with Najire and Ichako. Najire wanted me to meet her parents since she talked about me to them and asked Ichako to come as well as an example that we're in that kind of relationship. Inko understood and smiled at her son before he tied his shoes and left. Make sure to tell your girlfriends I said hello. I will. As Izuku walked out, he started to think of how far he's come in the time 11 months ago. If he would have said what his life became to his former self, he'd think he's crazy. As Izuku made his arrival at the train station, Izuku was met with Najire and 2 older people that looked like her coming off the train. Najire hugged Izuku with his mind going a mile a minute. Najire, what are you doing here? I thought I was coming to you. Sorry, but things changed with Ichako sending us both a text a little while ago. Izuku looked at his phone to realize he didn't feel it vibrate. Whoops, guess I forgot we had off today and didn't put it on sound. The four started to walk to Ichako's with Najire's father Hiwa began to ask a few questions about Izuku. You're Izuku Midoriya correct? Najire has said you are quite the nice boy. How did you and her meet? By me and Ichako finding him right after he jumped off a building trying to kill himself. Both parents stopped. Quite a way to meet someone. Both teens nodded as they came near Ichako's house. Izuku began to knock on the apartment door for a bulky man to answer it. Can I help you kid? Is Ichako Uraraka? He Mr. Uraraka, nice to see you again. Najire smiled at the large man for his demeanor to be that of a kind man. Well isn't this a surprise, the Hatos are here. It's been too long. It certainly has Maruki. How are both you and Karumi? We're hanging in there. What about you and Shuri? Likewise. As the adult spoke, Ichako ran out to hug Izuku. Mr. Uraraka saw this and began asking questions about the boy. So this is the Midoriya kid my daughter talks about. Funny, Najire talks about him as well. Both fathers glare at Izuku as Ichako motions them inside. They sit down with Ichako's mother coming out with refreshments. Alright kid, what's your story with our daughters? Izuku started to think of the best way to explain it with Najire and Ichako hugging him with a smile while saying in unison. He's our boyfriend. Everyone froze as Kurumi and Shuri started shrieking in happiness for their daughters having a boyfriend. Wait, why are you both dating the same guy? The two began to explain how they met Izuku and how they've helped him since the incident. They spoke about how they began to fall in love with him and how they both confessed to him. The Uraraka's kinda freaked when they heard the part about suicide, but calmed down when they found out Izuku is happy and healthy now. There's still one thing I don't get. How are you alive? A fall like that in the shape these two said you were in, you should have been dead long before now. Izuku pulled out a small bolt he had in his pocket to show to everyone and put it on the table. When I fell, my quirk activated for the first time. Izuku touched the bolt for it to turn to dust. I can pull the life energy out of things and use its power. He touched the rusted bits again for the bolt to revitalize back into the bolt. Or use it on something else. It affects the natural order of things and revitalized me back to what I was to some extent. At this moment, Maruki noticed the face of the boy to realize who he was. You're the kid who won the first year's sports festival, aren't you? Izuku rubbed the back of his neck in embarrassment. Wait, so that kid that looked like he was one hit away from dying was Ichako's boyfriend all along? Ichako nodded with Najire resting her head on Izuku. Geez kid, what happened to you? You don't want to know. Maruki got this and backed off the topic. Well why don't I make us some lunch? I'm sure we'll get to know each other better when we get something in us. Kurumi went into the kitchen with Shuri following to help. The group spent the afternoon talking and embarrassing their kids in front of Izuku to have a good laugh. It was soon that the relationship was accepted by both parents of Najire and Ichako, the only condition was to treat them well. Meanwhile at UA. Nezu called Aizawa in to speak with him about something he had seen the day of the sports festival. Aizawa, you told me of Midoriya's scars, but neglected to tell me how bad they were. Why? That was not on purpose. I didn't realize how bad his scars were until that moment. The small rodent sighed before turning his chair to see outside his window. It's a shame when a child of his age has that much damage. I will ask Recovery Girl if there is any chance to repair such damage. I asked her already and she said there's no way. If they were fresh, maybe. But I noticed that they looked rather old. Nezu held his head down while looking at a report he had obtained from Aizawa about something he learned at the USJ. Continue keeping an eye on Bakugo. When the work studies are over, we will reveal this information depending on what the agency he chose says. Time skip back to school. Izuku, Najire and Ichako were on their usual train to school when one of the other passengers called out to Izuku. Midoriya Izuku when Izuku stopped his conversion with Ichako and Najire as he looked up to the direction he heard his name. I knew it was you, congratulations on winning the sports festival. Many of the other passengers then complimented him. He blushed when he got off. His day seemed to have gotten better. When Izuku and Ichako walked in, the whole class was excited for being recognized for their efforts in the sports festival. When the bell rang, Izuku noticed Iida didn't do his usual routine and thought something was wrong. There wasn't much time to talk to him because Aizawa had walked in. Hello class, welcome back. I'd like to congratulate all of you for a job well done in your performance in the festival. Now moving forward we have the internships and for now we choose hero names. Everyone cheered as Aizawa started to show a chart on the screen. The names and numbers next to them up here are to show how many offers that person has. Even if you did not get drafted by an agency, you will choose from a list of 40 different agencies. As Izuku looked up above, he noticed he had over 5,000 people interested in him. Bakugo on the other hand, was about to lose it, seeing that he was third under Todoroki. At this moment, Midnight came in to start helping with making the names for everyone. The students were given a marker and a dry erase board to make a name for themselves. The name would be original and be allowed in order for them to use it. 5 minutes passed with some students ready to show what they had. Some were surprisingly accepted with a few tweaks like Aoyama's I cannot stop twinkling being turned to can't stop twinkling. Others like Alien Queen for Ishido was denied in thoughts of copyright. One after another, people started showing their names with Todoroki and Iida choosing their own name. Finally, it was coming to a close. For years, Izuku always believed he would make a name similar to All Might's. But after what he did to the green-haired boy, he began to try and think of something different. Something original and realistic towards me, that's it. Izuku wrote down what he had in mind and got up to the podium. Why that one man? The way my quirk works is it's held in my body and is used as an indirect way to transfer things. It's also an example of how something can drastically change your way of thinking. So as a way to show how things will change for others around me, my hero name will be the Life Hero Catalyst. Izuku smiled with everyone agreeing that there wouldn't be a better name for him. In the end, the only person that couldn't get a name was Bakugo, since he always put murder in his ideas. When everyone had received a list of what agencies they were able to select from, many had gotten 2 sheets with agency names except Izuku and Shoto, who received a book-size list. Izuku saw many top-ranking pros offering him a shot to intern like Gang Orca, Maruko the Rabbit Hero, Ed Shot, just to name some of the high-ranking heroes who wanted him. He then thought about it more carefully. What could each of them offer? For example, Maruko could teach him how to improve in hand-to-hand combat, plus she could also recommend a solid fighting style that will suit him. Then there was Ed Shot. He could possibly ask to learn how to use his sword more effectively, and lastly Gang Orca could teach him leadership skills needed to carefully analyze the situation correctly, but he could also learn hand-to-hand combat. Gang Orca isn't a slouch in that department either. One name did catch Izuku's eye. It was Gran Torino. Although an unknown hero to him, he decided to choose him as his 4th choice. He decided to ask Principal Nezu on who this hero was. After all was said and done, he turned in his form, noticing Iida's form only had 1 agency manual, while he also saw Bakugo's form and had Best Genist written down for his only choice. Little did he know he would have a special training menu. Chapter 19. When Izuku left class, he told Ichako if she and Nijire would wait for him, since he wanted to go talk to Nezu about who Gran Torino is. As he knocked on the door, he was allowed in by the small rodent. "Why, hello Mr. Midoriya, how can I be of service to you?" "Hello sir, I was wondering if you knew anything about a certain pro hero that scouted me." "And who might that be?" Izuku sat in the chair and spoke. "The pro hero's name is Gran Torino. I tried to check on who the person was in my spare time, but nothing came up. I was wondering if you had any idea since you've seen quite a few pros in your time here sir." Nezu began to ponder the name before making a rather surprised look. "Yes, I do know that name. As a matter of fact, he taught here back when All Might was a student." The mention of All Might's name left a sour taste in Izuku's mouth. He's a senior pro that rarely uses his license, but he's still around and taught All Might everything he knows about fighting. Learning a thing or two from him is possible if you consider him. Izuku thought about this while Nezu explained this. Someone that taught All Might, the #1 hero. Might be worth my time. Did that answer your questions? Yes, sir. Thank you, and I'm sorry for bothering you. Not to worry, helping students is what a teacher is here for. I wish you the best of luck in your studies. Thank you sir, and I will work hard." Izuku left to meet back up with Ichako and Nijire with Nezu in deep thought. If you believe he has Ofa Gran Torino, you are sorely mistaken. Please do not get the boys' hopes up and crush them. Day of the work study. As everyone was at the station to head to their respective agencies, Izuku stopped Iida before he boarded his train. Iida weighed up. As he turned around, he saw Izuku trying to catch him. As Izuku was before him, he decided to listen to what he had to say. "Iida, I know my words won't mean much, since I don't know what it's like to have a brother, but I know what it's like to lose. I've been losing a majority of my life, but if you ever need to talk I'm always free to listen, plus I can possibly help your brother once internships are over." Iida didn't know what to say. "Thank you Midoriya, I'll keep that in mind." The two went separate ways. Izuku began to wonder what wisdom and knowledge that Gran Torino could pass down to him. When he finally reached the address given to him, the building looked abandoned. As he walked in, he announced his arrival. "Hello, I'm Izuku Midoriya from UA. I'm here for my internship." Then he saw a man in a white and yellow costume on the ground in a pool of blood. He rushed to his side and used his move Regen Transfer, hoping he wasn't too late. All while this happened, the old man laid on the floor, waiting to see what would happen, only to receive a surge in energy and feel reborn. Any and all ailments that the old man was dealing with were gone, such as arthritis and an injured back. When Izuku backed away and asked, "Are you okay sir?" The old man was silent and didn't say anything because he was wondering if One for All had evolved to a point where it could heal people. "Who are you?" asked the old man while Izuku looked confused, then remembered the man probably didn't hear him. "Oh, I'm Izuku Midoriya. My hero name is Catalyst. I'm here for my internship with Gran Torino." Gran Torino was pleased to hear the boy also mention his hero name while he introduced himself. "Alright boy, if you got your hero costume, go get changed." Izuku nodded and quickly changed as he returned. "Okay, now I'm going to give you 3 minutes to land a smash on me. The way you used One for All impressed me. Any questions before we begin?" Izuku immediately asked a very important question. "My quirk isn't One for All or whatever it is you're talking about." The man started to laugh. "It's alright kid, I know the secret. You don't have to keep it from me. I want to see just how far Ofa grew from being passed onto you from that Ofa Toshinori." "Again, what are you talking about and who's Toshinori?" The elder hero starts to realize what's happening and asks him. "That was a different quirk than the one I thought it was, wasn't it?" "Yes, it's called Siphon. I use life energy that I get from anything and use it to heal myself and or do things that my normal speed or strength wouldn't be enough for." And you weren't the one All Might gave the recommendation to, were you? No, that would be the exploding bullhorn I fought at the sports festival. Gran Torino facepumped before going to make a call. Feel free to sit on the couch, I'll get some popcorn and something to drink while someone comes here to help explain the situation to me a little better. Izuku did as he was told to sit on the couch for Gran Torino to put a bag of popcorn in the microwave and yell at someone on the phone before telling them to come over. Sorry about that, youngster. You mind telling me a little about that fancy quirk of yours and what your relationship is with the blonde fool of a #1 hero? The greenhead was handed a glass bottle of soda, with the top being one needing a bottle opener with. Izuku wore down the top with his quirk before opening it with little effort and doing the same for Gran Torino's while explaining his story from start to finish. When Izuku was done, the door opened to All Might in his scrawny form. Gran Torino, sir, what did you wish to? All Might stopped mid-sentence when he noticed the two on the couch. Hello young Midoriya. Izuku said nothing and just gave him the stink eye while Gran Torino got up and grabbed his cane. You idiotic Yufun, you have to be the biggest hypocrite I've ever known. The elder hero kept whacking All Might in his ankles for him to kneel over. Gran Torino, sir, what is this abu out of everyone to say Quirkless can't be heroes? I thought you were different knowing where you came from. Shimura must be rolling in her grave right now over your idiotic comment. Izuku got up at this to talk to the duo. As much as I'd love to see All Might get hit again with a cane, and preferably below the belt, can someone tell me what the hell is going on here? Why was Gran Torino talking about some quirk called Ofa? What All Might has to do with this? Also, why is All Might a hypocrite besides the obvious proclaiming he did for years? Sigh, he doesn't seem the type to let it go, we might as well tell him. And by we, I mean you dream crusher. Gran Torino says this with one last jab in the gut before going to the couch to eat a little popcorn. As All Might explained his past with being quirkless and obtaining a quirk called One for All, Izuku remained completely emotionless until All Might came to a conclusion. So after finding out young Bakugo wasn't the type of man I believed he was, I told him to return the quirk to me to find a more worthy successor. All Might took a deep breath before asking his next question. Young Izuku Midoriya. I know I may not be your favorite person right now, but I have a request for you. I have seen just how noble you truly are to understand you truly have the heart of a hero. Would you become the successor of my quirk? Buck no. Both pro-heroes looked at Izuku while he explained. You told me I couldn't be a hero and gave the quirk to the one person who is the exact opposite and shouldn't even be a hero to begin with. Now that you realize this, you're pawning your quirk off to me. Screw you, I can become a better hero than you without your quirk. Izuku stormed out of the house and slammed the door shut. Young Midori let him go. Toshinori. All Might looked at his former mentor to try and argue. If I would have known what I did prior, young Bakugo would have never had the quirk. It's not the fact you gave it to someone who tortured the lad for years, it's what you said that was holding the boy together that has him so steamed up. Because of your actions, you may have lost probably the best successor you could ever have. The elderly hero got off the couch and gave the scrawny blonde one last hit to the stomach before going to the door. Sometimes, I think Ofa may have been wasted on the likes of you. Right now is one of those times. Gran Torino left with All Might staying in the house thinking of his actions thus far. The only thing he could think was, I screwed up and may never be able to fix this mistake. Elsewhere. Itsuki Bakugo was at Best Jeanist Hero Agency, believing that he was going to get a special training regimen to make him stronger. Unbeknownst to him, that was never the case. When he arrived at the agency, he checked in and was asked to wait. Meanwhile, Best Jeanist was reading the documents that were faxed from UA, which was practically a case against Katsuki Bakugo. In bold letters it read, should this behavior be seen in public, don't hesitate, return him to UA immediately. Back to Izuku. After having stormed out of Gran Torino home, Izuku had forgotten that he was still in his hero costume. He began to quickly contemplate his current situation due to the fact that his workplace experience recommendation wasn't meant for him. Hey kid. Izuku turned around to see Gran Torino. Hello sir, I'm sorry I stormed off like I did. Torino shook his head left to right. I came to apologize kid, I didn't know you weren't his successor. I can sign a paper to transfer you to Edshot, his agency is close by. Thank you sir, I appreciate any help. Chapter 20. As Izuku and Gran Torino arrived at Edshot's agency, the old pro explained the situation to Edshot's secretary, that there was a mix-up and Izuku Midoriya wanted to know if Edshot could still train him. When the secretary had paged him, there was a massive commotion that came from his office as she had forgotten to mention he was in a meeting with Gang Orca and Maruko. Suddenly the elevator opened and the three top pros who wanted to train Izuku were fighting one another to see who would train him. I'm telling you too, the kid needs good hand-to-hand combat training. I can help him with that. That incident in the finals proves he needs to understand situations where he has to be calm and calculating. I would be far better at that than any of you. And what about that attack he used during his fight with Endeavor's son Orca? It seemed unrefined to me. If I can help him find a way to make his style more precise, he could be on par with any pro at the time. The trio stopped when they saw Izuku holding in the urge to fanboy at the moment. Holy crap, the 5th, 6th, and 10th ranked pro heroes in the flesh. Come on Izuku, you need to make the best first impression during this. Just stay calm and say something hello. Izuku immediately bowed at the three while apologizing. I'm sorry for any inconveniences I may have caused. It would be an honor to learn under you. The three were silent until Maruko busted out in laughter. Ha ha ha, that has got to be the funniest thing I've seen. The kid so tense that he looks like he's about to piss his pants. The pro had held her sides as everyone looked at her. He's strong enough to stand stronger than some of the most powerful people in his year, but he still looks like a little kid who's scared to ask someone if they want to be friends. Out of everyone there, only the rabbit hero found this hilarious among the 6 in the area. Forgive her Midoriya, Maruko can be a touch rude at times. Gang Orca held his hand out as a way of welcoming the boy. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Gang Orca, sir. Just Gang Orca is fine, and there is no need to be so tense. Why yes sir. After Maruko's little laughing spree, the 5 went up to Edshot's office to discuss the issue. To be simple, it would appear there was a mix-up with the paper Midoriya filled out. Someone had gotten the info wrong and gave him my address instead of yours, Edshot. Interesting. The pro looked at Izuku to begin asking a few questions. Midoriya, what would you say about learning on the field with the 3 of us? He was confused as he explained the situation. You see, our agencies have been asked to work together in a joint case where we will be working to find the hero killer. Would you be interested in joining us for that? It would be an honor, sir. Izuku held his head down as a way to bow again. Thank you very much for the offer, and I will gladly accept it if you think I am worthy of it. Wait a minute. Maruko looked at Izuku closer to realize something. You're that kid Ryukyu's been helping, aren't you? Why yes. Ms. Ryukyu has been helping me greatly. It's thanks to the training she's given me that I can be the hero in training I am today. I'm liking this kid more and more. If you don't want him edgy, I'm more than willing to teach him. But their joking aside, Edshot started to talk with Izuku over the finite things. So what exactly would you like to learn? We can help with that along with teaching you the finer things of pro hero work. Well, I wanted to find out a way to make the life energy I use more a long-range move. I have the basics down, but I need to be very careful how I use it. Gang Orca pulled out a small weight to place on the desk. Show us what you got, kid. Izuku absorbed the energy while placing the rusted dust of the weight in the trash. Anything specific to target? The plant over there I was planning to get rid of. If you'd like, aim for that. Izuku focused the energy in the palm of his hand in a small dart-sized item before shooting it and aiming at the plant 30 feet away. Not a bad shot, but seems kin to we wait for it. The plant and the vase it was in started to die with them turning to dust. If I'm not careful, I could actually kill someone with it. I want to find a way to do that without. The fight with Todoroki where I used it was kinda a fluke, but I want to be able to fight with it. The 3 looked at this with Gang Orca suggesting something. Why not use it in reverse? The teen thought of this before smacking himself in the head. Why didn't I think of that ability? Izuku tried again, but thinking of not killing something, but revitalizing it. He aimed for the dust of the plant before hitting it to restore it back to what it was. Not bad. Let's work on this after patrol. The 5 stood up with Izuku saying his goodbyes to Gran Torino and apologizing once more to him for the mix-up. He waved it off as they ended this meeting and began to show Izuku the finer forms of hero work. But Bakugo was on patrol with Best Jeanist as he explained how the business works. Everyone was staring at them when a group of kids approached them and asked, "You're the guy from the sports festival, right?" As they asked this, Katsuki had a smug look as if his greatness was being acknowledged. Yeah, he's the angry guy that got the snot beat out of him by the guy with the scary body. That pride immediately went to anger as this was said. What did you say, little brats? I could beat that shitty nerd with my eyes closed. You'll all be regretting those words when I'm the new #1 hero. The act made the kid screaming and crying while running away. Jeanist looked at Bakugo as he acted as what he did was right. What? Until you find a way to control that temper of yours, I cannot allow you on patrol. What? Just because I lost my temper with some snot-nosed kids, those children are who we protect. Shouting and being rude does nothing but make them have less doubt in you. Being a hero is an honor, so you must uphold it with the best of your abilities. The 2 walked with Bakugo now clearly enraged. Jeanist decided to ask Bakugo a simple question about someone he found interesting. That Midoriya boy you fought in the finals, how did he get all those scars? Like I give a shit about him. If you ask me, he'd deserve more. This comment did not sit well with the pro. He decided to, instead of showing him the ropes, he'd do something to make his ego and attitude a bit more controllable. He didn't wish to send the boy back to UA, but that option was looking good at that moment in time. Time skipped to the next day in the evening. Izuku, Maruko, Gang Orca, and Ed Shot began heading on a bullet train to Hosu with going over a small quiz for Izuku to see what he learned. Alright, why do heroes go on patrol? The first is because it's easier for them to get to a situation where they would be needed and save potential lives. The second is to calm the populace, knowing that heroes are on the prowl and nothing bad would happen. Maruko went next. What is a variable when heroes work on cases that specify joint hero assignments? It depends on whether the agency specializes in rescue, support, or combat. Most agencies specify between one of the three, and each play very vital parts in assignments that help it succeed. Ed Shot gave his question last. If you were being paid as a pro, what are some of the variances that define your pay? The nature of the case in general, the amount of collateral damage, civilian injuries, and also how many other heroes were involved in the mission. Nicely done. I would have also accepted the duration of the case as well, since that occasionally becomes a variant. Izuku smiled a bit as the train immediately stopped. The heck was that? Maruko asks while upside down on Gang Orca from the momentum. The four looked out the window before being pulled out of thought by a pro coming through the train with a villain that looked the same as the one from the USJ. Nomu Maruko jumped into action to knock the beast out of the train, while Ed Shot looked to make sure the pro was alright. Looks like you're getting a crash course on a citywide threat catalyst. Gang Orca grabbed Izuku to jump out of the train and head in the direction of some fire that was in the city. Chapter 21. As they came to the location with Ed Shot behind, the scene was that out of a nightmare. Fires blazing, people running in fear, and three creatures that looked like Nomu for Izuku to be concerned. The three heroes and their trainee were in Hosu City as things began to get heated. Catalyst, you called the one before Nomu. Do you know what we're dealing with? I don't know for certain, but these things look like the thing that attacked us from before. Maybe they're Nomu's family or something. One of the three were about to fly off with a kid until Gang Orca used a supersonic attack on it. Family or not, we need to take them down. What about Stain? This seems a little too much of a coincidence for this to happen. Maruko's comment made Izuku realize something. Izuku ran as fast as he could with the three noticing. Where you going, let him go. Ed Shot held his hand up while looking at the Nomu near him. Them first, then we go after our student. The other two heroes nodded before giving the pros of the city a hand stopping the monstrosities known as Nomu. After Izuku took off he went running towards the alleys, since all of Stain's victims were in isolated areas. While running he found a trash can lid and absorbed its life energy, just in case his worst fear had come to life, when suddenly he saw Stain about to end his friend Iida's life, and he also noticed another body on the floor. Izuku well ran taking one of Ed Shot's moves to land a powered-up Superman punch. But Bakugo. Genist had denied Bakugo any chance to go on patrol as he was being groomed, but was having a difficult time dealing with this, thinking that he chose the wrong agency. Before Genist could continue Bakugo's transformation he got a call from UA. He answered the call away from Bakugo. Hello. Without hesitation, hey Genist, it's Eraser, what's the progress with Bakugo? Genist is usually the kind of person who gives second chances, but Bakugo wasn't easy to deal with. I'll send him back immediately. Genist sounded defeated. Good, because we're watching the video of the fool yelling at children. The call ended and Genist grabbed Kitsuki's costume case and told him, Bakugo, I've been called in for assistance on a case, you're coming with me. Like a child he was excited, but little did he know he was going to be furious. Back with Izuku. After landing a powerful Superman punch he saw Iida, who was shocked. Don't worry Iida native, I'm here to help you. Stain recovered and rubbed his jaw after a powerful punch. He then grabbed his katana and pointed it at Izuku. Who are you, boy? Why do you protect these fakes? Before Izuku could answer Iida had cut into the conversation. Why are you here? This has nothing to do with you. That's where you're wrong, it's a hero's job to meddle into another person's affairs. Stain looked at the young man and saw he had the conviction of a true hero, one who held on to its true meaning of the title. You boy, I acknowledge you to be a true hero. I'll spare you, but the fakes must die. Before Izuku engaged in combat with Stain, he sent a distress message to Ed Shot, Maruko and Gang Orca, hoping one of them would assist him as he stalled for time. I won't let you do that. Izuku used the energy he had from absorbing the trash can lids to get close to Stain and force him away from Native and Iida. The dark vigilante understood he had to take down the boy before taking out his targets. As such, he used a few daggers to attack Izuku. The green-haired boy stopped these by sending small energy blasts to turn them into dust. This act impressed Stain as he witnessed his attack turn to dust. You can decay things or something, kid. More like mess with the natural order of life itself. A smirk came on the hero killer's face as this was said. Impressive. Izuku didn't have time to react when Stain came at them with his katana. It would appear though, you hesitate when fighting people. Is that because you fear what you can do to them, or because you know people can be pure evil for no reason, but just because they can? Stain attempted to mess with Izuku for him to slightly hesitate. The act made him almost get cut if he didn't get pulled by native shouting. Watch the sword, he comes back to reality for the blade to me millimeters from slicing him. So you want to play a little swordsmanship? Izuku brought out the capsule that held his sword while holding it in his right hand. Let's play swordsmanship. Izuku held a stance with his right side leading, while Stain crossed his arm with the katana across his body. It was silent for a second before they came at the other. Izuku went for a downward strike with Stain blocking it for the villain to counter with an upward. Izuku held it while doing a jump kick to knock the hero killer away. He attempted to throw a few more knives at him again to get Izuku to turn them to dust. This was a ploy, however, to get beside Izuku. He avoided it by holding his blade, but this barely prevented it from happening. Izuku jumped back to get some coverage with Stain coming at him again. Izuku smirked while holding his blade in a defensive pose. As the two collided, Stain's katana snapped with Izuku using the side of the blade to smack him into a wall. That sword of yours was very dull. If it was honed, I may not have been able to beat you. A blade nearly came at Izuku's cheek with the boy reacting and sending the weight of his chain he had hidden in his costume sleeve as a safety measure hit Stain in the center of his chest. The act knocked him out with Izuku sighing in relief. That was scary. He fell to his knees with Iida slowly gaining the ability to walk again. He went over to Izuku to ask him a serious question. Why did you help me? It was my fault, I was nearly killed, so why? Do I have to spell it out, Iida? We're friends. You have my back when it counts and I have yours. If you do something stupid like go after the hero killer alone, I'll be there to bust you out. Iida smiled at this while helping Izuku to his feet. What do we do about him? First we gotta disarm him and restrain him. Then we'll go to the streets to hopefully find the pros. The two went to work after that trying to stop any problems from happening. Once they finished, they tied Stain and rope they found in the dumpster and Izuku healed him a little with the life energy from his weapons. He didn't heal much, just enough where his cracked skull and broken ribcage would no longer be an issue to move him. They came to the outside of the alley to see Maruko, Gang Orca, Edshot, and some other pros running over. We came as soon as we could. What's the situation? Gang Orca asked while they saw the hero killer restrained. Sorry that I kinda did this for you, I didn't have much of a choice in this matter. The three pros were rather impressed with this and the fact Izuku was able to hold his own against Stain. Midoriya, Iida. Todoroki came over with it, confusing the two. What are you doing here? My dad came to try and hunt down the hero killer. Seems like he's a little late for that. As they were talking, the winged Nomu came over to grab Izuku. Midoriya and Endeavor came over to attempt to attack the bird for Stain to move faster than anyone. He licked some blood that was the Nomu's from Maruko's cheek to paralyze the thing before heading over with a hidden knife to stab it in the head. You all are fake heroes. This pup is the only one that's worthy to be called a hero than any of you. Stain let out a deadly aura to make everyone stay still from it. There is only one man that is worthy to take my life. He began to shout as if he was screaming to the heavens. All Might is worthy. He stopped in his tracks with everyone frozen in place by his last-ditch effort. Even if he was about to die, Stain was ready to fight everyone there. This conviction shook everyone to their core as they saw not a villain, but a man ready to fight to the death for his beliefs. When they finally were able to move, the pros called an ambulance for those injured and brought Iida and Native to a hospital to get treatment. The night of horrors ended for the city of Hosu at long last. Chapter 22. The night after the Hosu incident, Edshot, Maruko and Gang Orca had taken the liberty to have Izuku get a checkup at the hospital. When he was asked to remove the top half of his hero suit. When he removed his top half, his hero mentors had seen how horribly scarred his body was. His checkup went smoothly with no other abnormalities, but he wanted to wait for Iida to see what his results were. After an hour, Iida got his news and was told he'd need a nerve transplant if his hand was going to be back at 100%. Izuku asked him if he wanted to be healed but refused the offer, saying he wanted to keep his damaged hand as a reminder. Before the two could talk more, the door to the room opened up, revealing Edshot, Maruko, Gang Orca, Manuel along with the police chief. They approached the two young men before the two could say anything. I am Chief of Police Tsuragami, but I'm sure you're aware of that. Izuku knew what was going to happen, but before he could speak, Iida chimed in. Sir, I apologize for my foolish actions. I was consumed by vengeance and rage. Please, any punishments you have for Midoriya, allow me to take all the blame. Izuku was shocked as he wasn't expecting Iida to try and shoulder the blame that Tsuragami spoke. I would have kept the hero killer's defeat secret and let Edshot, Maruko and Gang Orca take credit for his capture if it hadn't been for this video. It was a video shot from one of the apartments capturing every moment that occurred. The video was called Sports Festival Champ Takes Down Stain. If I should punish Midoriya for his actions, the public would riot. As for you, Iida, UA will decide your punishment. He bowed and left the hospital. Izuku turned to his mentors and bowed before them, asking for forgiveness. I am so sorry for what I have done. Because of me, all this trouble is being caused forever. You followed your instincts from what you could go on knowing something bad may happen. Though I do not like the outcome, we will change the story slightly to make it seem like you had permission to use your quirk. Izuku was confused as Edshot explained. The video recorded you using your quirk only when it was needed. Most of the fight revolved around you using support items, so we can use that to our advantage. We'll just say that the situation called for us to believe you needed to use your quirk for us to authorize it. You followed a distress sent by native and discovered Iida and acted in defense of the two. The police won't look like they're backing down, and no riots will occur. Bakugo walked up to punch Izuku in the head. Next time you get the idea to do something stupid, warn people. Izuku held his head as Gang Orca began speaking next. You may have stopped the hero killer, but what you did also broke the law to make you no different than him. If the situation was slightly different, you would be in jail right now. Izuku held his head down as the pro continued. However, you acted smart and did what you had to in order to save the lives of two people and stop a man that would have harmed or killed more. You did good, but use your head a little better next time. The four began to leave with Izuku saying goodbye to Iida as they left to get some deserved rest. But Bakugo. What do you mean my work study is over? Bakugo became enraged as Nezu sat behind his desk. I mean what is said, Mr. Bakugo. We had given Best Jeanist a copy of rules and guidelines since you had been put on a shorter leash than most for past actions. If you were to break them or cause any trouble, your work study will be immediately stopped. Nezu began to show a video of Bakugo screaming at kids. Tomorrow, you will report to class and be taught solely by Mr. Izawa like any other class and go over what you would have learned on a field in a classroom. Bakugo left enraged while Izawa and Nezu stayed inside the office to talk about a second matter. What do you want to do about the Hosu incident? Nezu began to think on this while rewatching the video. Mr. Midoriya only used his quirk as a defense and on inanimate objects. The three have informed me that the incident will be handled with him having permission to use his quirk even when he didn't have it. I commend him for doing the right thing, but we cannot let this be overlooked. Nezu stopped the video while thinking. Tell the two that they must prepare an essay for them to hand in when they come back. 3,000 for Midoriya and 4,000 for Iida. If they do not have it completed in that time, they will be suspended for a week. I think that is fair enough. Izawa nodded as Nezu began to type up the information to fax to the pros of the two students. The next day. Izuku woke up and took a quick shower before beginning his day with his mentors again. When he found all three, Edshot handed him a fax that came in. On it was a statement that he had to do a 3,000-word essay on the aspects of quirk laws and how they are necessary in society by the time he returns. If he fails to do so, then he will face suspension for a week. To be honest, this is a generous offer they are giving you. Make sure to take time to do this because we will not give you ours. Yes sir. Izuku nodded as he prepared for the day. While doing so, he obtained a call from both Nijire and Ichako. Hello Izuku, what happened to make you go against a hero killer? Both shouted this with the green-haired boy nearly going deaf. Sorry if I scared you too. I'm okay though and nobody's seriously hurt. That doesn't make us worry less. We're still concerned for your safety when you do things like this. Nijire's right, promise you'll be more careful next time. Izuku smiled knowing his girlfriends cared enough to worry for him. I promise I won't do something this reckless again. Both felt a little satisfaction with this statement as they wished him good luck going forward and that they're rooting for him. He wished them luck as well before hanging up and continuing through his day. While Izuku continued through the day, his training session with Edshot consisted of swordsmanship and parkour. After that he was learning hand-to-hand with Maruko and lastly leadership and tactics with Gang Orca. He took to each lesson like a fish to water. When the day was over, Izuku didn't rest as nightfall came. Instead of sleeping, he began to write his assigned apology letter in order to complete it before the due date. Due to all three of the high-ranking heroes spending the night at Edshot's agency to train their intern, Maruko noticed that his room's light was on, so she took initiative to knock. Hey kid, everything okay? She had walked in on Izuku who was asleep at a small table with his essay completed and well written. She grabbed the blanket and covered him. Before she walked out, she turned off the lights. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.